All right, another tier list or tier rank, tier lister, tier ranker, whatever it is. I already did like classic rock albums from 60s, 70s, 80s, a little bit of 90s, maybe a little bit of 50s, but mostly 60s, 70s, 80s. Those are kind of the decades that I consider worthy of expertise. 90s music and 50s music is all good and plenty, but it's just not. I don't really consider that hard rock. I don't really consider it heavy metal. I consider it more alternative in the 90s case or rockabilly in the 50s case. Anyway, it's generically, in terms of genre, uh, ultimately distinctive. Anyway, the good news is that if there's any decade that has cachet to be an expert in, it's the 60s. You could be an expert in 70s music or 80s music, and it would be fine. But it just I and there's respective strengths to both. But I think the 60s music is the most I think it's the most sophisticated rock decade to know every kind of know the ins and outs of. Knowing everything about 70s music is a little bit stoner loserish. It's a little bit punk. It's a little bit drab. It's a little unadorned. It's a little rough around the edges. Which is good because that is the heart a decade for rock music. But it isn't quite it doesn't really bridge the gap between pop music and rock the way the 60s does. 80s music, on the other hand, is kind of sentimental in a cool either cheesy romantic ways or in sort of pretentious cool ways. Still, it's kind of a sentimental era, and I don't think it's as morally instructive as the 70s is, but I also don't think that that's really the salient. If you like the 80s music, you're gonna like music that sort of is conceptual, but it doesn't really possess mood, or doesn't really capture mood with the same optimal efficiency as uh, 70s and 60s. And 60s, um, it captures certain moods, doesn't capture every mood, but I think it captures mood better than the 80s. And the 70s, the late 70s is like a prequel to the 80s, and then the early 70s is like a sequel to the 60s. So in some sense or another, you can divide the decades really between 65 to 75 and then 66 onto 86, or 75 to 85, because once you get past 1985, everything sort of the last 5 years become very very hard boiled and intense, and sonically they sort of degrade, and the artists become a lot more commercial, a lot more bombastic, and sort of running on empty. They don't really The lyricism isn't as pungent. Um, and of course, the underground music was the exception of that, and that's sort of the birth of alternative music was out of the failure of commercial music in the late 80s. It's just the same before 1965, music was kind of it was segregated, and so the free expression that we consider 60s music as a theme didn't really mount that much in American music. In British music, you saw it more, but in American music, it was sort of there was sort of this atmosphere of patience and expectation, but the actual party of the 60s didn't happen until mid and late, or after 65, let's say. But early 60s music and late 80s music, despite being those two half decades being very sort of islands unto themselves, I do find that I don't tend to consider them in the same ballpark, but I do think that they're rightly considered part of their quote unquote decades. I think at least two decades of rock music, not three. And the first 5 years, the last 5 years, sort of are transitional. And they're actually cagier and become even more controversial, in my view, than the fun decades of the 70s and the late 60s and early 80s. Now, up here is we can find that can't really discuss that controversial might not be the best word. There's something a little bit transitional and latent and cagey and sort of unarrived about those decade periods, 60, 65, 85, 80 to 90. Anyway, so here we're just going to talk about basic music from 65 to 1970. These albums are all very long, and they many of them are sort of contain deep cuts that you wouldn't necessarily listen to in your life. However, at the time we're banned with or whatever the patient to listen to all these. So what we're going to do is I'm going to search for the track list on each album I'm not too sure about, and I'm going to run through the track list so that we have some organization that we can attack for breaking each album. Let's start the Mamas and Papas. You don't have to go, just to keep spicing, that will go best first. Yeah. So that we run through this quick. With minute interference. I was someone visited. I next door neighbors, wives and neighbors, but like I lived in like around block from the same house that Tarzan lived back when he lived in the town before he died. He died in my town. Like, he lived all point in the house near where I grew up. At different years, no overlap. It's a good album. I like it. Bob Dylan is not my real my friend. Yes, so stop. Okay. Any close application? Take that. Close all these things. Okay. Anyway. Okay. Here's the other one I was going to do, but for now we're just going to do Highway 61 Revisited. Okay, great. Okay. So this album is classic Dylan album. If you could only own one album, this might be the album for you. It has Like a Rolling Stone. It's sort of the major hit on here. It was also a single. I think that this album is a little bit of a one-hit wonder for Dylan, right? It's a good album. I like it. I think it's sort of his major foray in the rock, and unfortunately, fans like that he had this foray in the rock and abandoned um, folk music. However, I really do think that it was a short-lived enterprise on his part, and he ended up falling back into folk music or country or whatever you really want to peg Dylan as. So I can't say that it was a really like a momentous change. However, it's a solid hit on that album. The other music isn't terrible. It's passable, but it's nothing really scintillating or incredibly memorable. Anyway, up next is actually I don't even know what this one is actually. Buffalo Springfield. Okay, Hendrix. Axis Bowl of Love. This is a very good album. A lot of guys named Jimmy make good music. I think it's because it sounds like jammy, like jamming, Jimmy, jamming. And I'll put in really good album. I don't know if it's the best album of the '60s. I don't think it really has the panache um that the album cover suggests. It's lyrically a little unoriginal. The best lyrical performances by Hendrix are on this album, but even then they're sort of flamboyant and sophomoric. Little Wings, an incredible song. Uh, Obviously, Castles Made of Sand is or Spanish is Castles Made of Sand not on this? Uh, uh, Fun fact, according to Wikipedia, the Hindu religious imagery on this album was not his intention, and whoever designed it kind of dissatisfied Hendrix. Anyway, but I think it's sort of the most appealing thing about the album in some ways. EXP is fun. It's almost like a spoken word. Little If Six Was Nine's classic. Bold as Love, great. Castles Made of Sand. So the side one, side two are both respectable. I don't think this album really tears it up for me. This album is kind of a romantic flight of fancy a little bit, and before that, for that reason, I don't know if I would call it, the highest tier, which is called the actual '60s. I don't know why that's an annoying name. Um, but yeah. So I think Bob Dylan, I'm demoting to That's Very Nice the first time was enough for me. I think really good album I've listened to several times is maybe a little too high for this. I'm gonna put down to good album. I like it. Now up next, we'll do another Hendrix at one because I don't want to throw him under the bus. Um, okay, we have the enigmatic Electric Ladyland. Probably the first song I've heard of in my life by Hendrix was Electric Ladyland. I think even my sister had it on her iPod years and years and years ago, and it was such an odd name that it stayed in my head. Um, this album has one of my favorite sort of slow burns, Burning of the Midnight Lamp. Not really a deep cut, but it's an underrated, well composed sort of um, thing. It seems a little derivative. I'm sure I've heard somewhere that this song was sort of sampled from something else, probably classical music, but or whatever. But it's a very compelling song. Makes the album a lot more intriguing. You obviously have All Along the Watchtower, which is written by Bob Dylan, who we just talked about. Which is funny because this is one of the best songs by Hendrix ever, and yet it's a song that he didn't write. And Dylan's version is a stinker. So that just shows you how the music works sometimes. Dylan and Hendrix sometimes seem like the night and day of the '60s in terms of American, enigmatic recording artists. Obviously, Voodoo Child's Slight Return is a great side. I guess it's a double album, right? So it's a side D. It closes out the album. It's incredible. Crosstown Traffic, though, for a side A, it's not amazing, but it's a good lead in. Have you ever been to Electric Ladyland? It's a fine song, worthy of side A. The Rainy Day, Dream Me Away. I don't know everyone on these, honestly. But from what I heard, Voodoo Child, the 14-minute, 15 second jam is like earth shaking. I think this album is better than Accessible to Love. Um, I'll put it interesting and great album for now. Probably Hendrix's strongest album. Not necessarily an album everyone has to listen to, but it's if you don't listen to it, you are missing out. But I also don't fault you if you overlook it because a lot of Hendrix's work is kind of it's cool, but it's sort of it does kind of sound like it was being avoided, and it doesn't really have a comparison. To me, that's not the party. tones. But I do think music as an introverted, introspective experience. It's acid music. If you ever that on that. Okay. Close to me feel of things like hot rats. I on this that's one of his best songs. It's a long song. Which is takes up more the album than maybe advisable. It makes his here it is. 1969 tail end of the 60s. It's just probably with him. Those two alone make this very good. Side one starts because of Rebellion and this string belief. Okay. That's the one of the best side ones you ever asked for. Because of Rebellion to jazz fusion, which doesn't make perfect sense. It doesn't have a little bit of synth tone or rhythmic style or the instrumentation is sort of to express that. I would say side A is legendary, side B is sort of it's a little nerdy. I'd say it's a I will put it in a really good album. I listened several times to it. So basically, we have won all these higher categories so far. I'm still looking for one of those the highest tier called the actual 60s because that's sort of the bread and butter of perfect average 60s audio file. Really well listened to what personifies the 60s, not just what is ambient to it. Or falsely represents it. The Doors, okay. This is one I think goes up there. Some people think the Doors is cheesy, sort of played out, possibly derivative, possibly predictable, unoriginal. I think the Doors is a better band than people give it credit for. I think it's been so many movies that their debut album, which is self-titled from early '67, Elektra Records, right? I think they are considered January 4th. I like how it was the 4th day of January. Like it really would have made a huge difference or something. It's their debut album. I'm sure no one even knew what it was. But anyway, Whiskey a Go Go. See, this is a classic LA band. The Doors were one of the first really like Los Angeles sort of style bands. That to me is anytime a band kind of represents a region of the earth, that sings high praise because you know that they had to kind of embody an entire lifestyle, or some would say a culture. I don't know that they'll go that far. But anyway, this song has the Immortal, Break On Through to the Other Side, as well as Light My Fire, although this was a single that was released. See, Break On Through was released as a single before the album was released, and then Light My Fire was released also as a single months after. But Break On Through was only released as a single a few days before the album dropped. Let's go to track list. The Crystal Ship is a fun tune. All The End is good. Side 2, great ending for the album. Epic, Wagnerian, operatic ending. So this album's a cool album, and for 1967, it was Backdoor Man. I don't know. They did backdoor cover. I didn't realize that. I should check that out because that's a classic Willie Dixon written song for Howlin' Wolf with Hubert Sumlin playing lead guitar and one of the best leads in electric blues, Chicago blues you'll ever hear. So the Crystal Ship, Light My Fire, Break On Through, Alabama Whiskey Bar. Is this about the Whiskey a Go Go? Or no, it's written by Bertolt Brecht. Wow. So, oh yeah, the one thing I do respect about Jim Morrison is that he was very into like plays and stuff. Like he was into Greek theater and Brechtian theater and all this German theater, like expressionist theater, right? So he was a fairly like a relatively educated songwriter. A lot of songwriters didn't have that much in the way of an education, but Jim Morrison did. Another fun fact about Jim Morrison was that his dad was a leading commander in the Vietnam War, and I forget his exact role, and I don't even really remember his name. But Jim Morrison was obviously the antipode to that, and he was a full blown hippie, or at least jived with that crowd. So it shows the apple does sometimes fall far from the tree. Anyway, for the Doors, I gotta give it high praise. It's a little played out for sure. I mean, it's probably very played out. It's in every movie. Some of these songs are in every movie, right? But that tells you how immortal it is. In the actual '60s, I think this album is about as ubiquitous as an album gets, especially if you're from the West Coast. Okay, up next, man, only five albums, and we did past 20-minute mark. Damn. I can do the Hendrix ones quickly because I kind of Hendrix is probably the first person I really took seriously from the '60s, other than like the standard Beatles music you have to listen to when you grow up. Basically, lullabies for adults. I'm not crazy about them. By the way, where are the Beatles albums? There has to be some. Yeah, they're there. Okay, I just didn't notice. Are you experienced? See, this is all the inspiration for the Joe Rogan experience, right? The goofy, self-promoting language that's somewhat tedious to keep saying over and over. However, it does seem fairly original. And of course, they have this Alphonse Mucha kind of lithography design. And yet, if you take acid, you know that warbled sort of bubble look is kind of the tunnel vision you get on acid. So it's actually an aesthetically kind of enriched album cover, despite being relatively dull and matte and sort of like infrastructural and unadorned. Anyway, Purple Haze is on here. Foxy Lady, Red House, Manic Depression, Third Stone from the Sun, Fire. Hey, so there's this is the UK. Okay, interesting. Hey Joe was a Billy Roberts song. Hendrix did not write the lyrics. Hey Joe was in the American version, so I'm an American. I'm gonna go off that. Foxy Lady, Purple Haze, Hey Joe, The Wind Cries Mary, Fire. So this album is up there with the other album that I ranked very highly. I don't know. I think it's probably in the same category as the Frank Zappa one. Maybe a little bit higher. Hey Joe, Fire, The Wind Cries Mary. Is Purple Haze? Oh, yeah, Purple Haze. Okay, this has got basically a greatest hits. This is a greatest hits compilation, but in a standard studio album. This is the actual '60s. Everything on that album is reflective of what Hendrix represented to people as a phenomenon. And those songs were very like, they kind of, they're not obtrusive. They're very like sort of poppy, sort of jingled, condensed product, oriented songs. I think Are You Experienced actually somehow is, I didn't expect this really, but Are You Experienced is really the typical Hendrix album that you have to listen to. And that's me singing high praise because I didn't really know how much credit I would give Jimi Hendrix. Okay, up next, let's change it up a bit. Um, Let It Bleed, Rolling Stones. Okay, this is one of my favorite album covers because I like cake and tires and things. It's very stylish. Let It Bleed. Um, Give Me Shelter, Monkey Man. You can always get what you want. So the first song is killer on side one, and then on side two, the last song is killer. Um, Everything else I've listened to. I've listened to this album. I tried to like it. It's not for me. It's a little rambly and downbeat and sort of country twang and sort of like loosely janky and sort of. It reminds me of a junkyard kind of rambling song. In a way, this album does reflect the '60s. It reflects the sort of the loose aesthetic of the metallic car culture in the '60s, just sort of cheap cruising culture that proliferated then. With because you had an interesting tie-in between sort of the muscle cars, or what we call pony cars, and you also had the sort of the Chrysler era kind of abutted to it in the same Nexus. Um, so this album sort of reflects a kind of like fast and loose Americana that was sort of unadorned and um, kind of aesthetically spare, but very kind of rugged. It reminds me a little bit of a CCR kind of style. However, it is still very British and a little more polished and sophisticated than CCR. But I would say it is. I don't like this album. I don't like it. I don't think it. I don't think it typifies the Stones incredibly well, and I think it gets lost in the weeds. Maybe lyrically, it's more cohesive than that. I'll have to revisit it at some point for sure. But I'm just not. I've never been sold on it, even though the album cover is kind of my favorite album cover. Uh, it's sometimes irony. There's an irony in the artwork. Like both the Doors album, like the Are You Experienced one, is it looks like a cereal. It looks like they're trying to sell you a box of cereal. But then you actually look at the track list, and the American track list was so good. The UK track list was a little worse, but the American track list is like definitive '60s songs, and they all happen to be the Hendrix Experience, but they are definitive '60s songs. There's at least four of them, and the same is effectively true for the Doors album. So yeah, I think it's funny sometimes how looks can be deceiving. Um, there is something sort of unpretentious about the Hendrix album, whereas Let It Bleed, even though it's unadorned, it is still somewhat pretentious with the layers of different sort of um, contrasting themes: the cake, the tire, the record, final record, right? So I'm just very surprised that I give this album a low score. Anyway, up next is Velvet Underground. Okay, on my computer, I don't know if you'll see it, but on my computer, this is very inverted. Um, let's put it here for now. I'm probably gonna rank it far higher. I do love the Velvet Underground, especially this album, but even everything they've done really. Um, let's go 69. This is hardly. Oh no, wait. This is what did they call Loaded White Light, White Heat? What did they call the Banana album? Was it 67? Yeah, the Velvet Underground and Nico. So they did an album called the Velvet Underground, which was really eponymous. And then they did the earliest one though was, or was it their, yeah, their very first debut album was the Velvet Underground and Nico. And Nico wasn't part of the Velvet Underground, but she effectively was. Anyway, this album, the story is that it didn't sell that much, but of like the 10,000 albums that were sold, almost everyone who bought it started a band. It was considered a very influential album. It was also considered an album that was it didn't really need to make money because Andy Warhol was like footing the bill for the party the raucous lifestyle of the bandmates. These guys are all associates with Andy Warhol, and so they had kind of this luxury of not really needing to make a lot of money. It wasn't, so it ended up being not very commercial. However, that was why it was also so aesthetically appealing and um, had a lot of unpretentious sort of appeal and I'm not at a loss for words, but it was very, sort of authentic sounding, which sounds pretentious, but if you listen to it, the track list is uh the track list is really comprised of a kind of rugged sort of streetwise drug addict, um um heartthrob sort of ballads, and they're relatable to, but they're slightly elitist too. It's like white people who don't know how to party, so they do hard drugs to feel edgy. But that's like there's something very romantic about that because it's kind of obscure. Anyway, I mean, compared to for the average person, it would be seem slightly obscure. All these songs are written by Lou Reed, and which is notable because Lou Reed sings most of them too, if not all of them, and he had the most successful career afterwards, and he's considered like an icon of alternative music, of what they call now proto punk or pre punk music. This band kind of defined punk music before it ever existed, or so they say. Uh, Wait, look at this. Incredible, incredible, incredible. Sunday Morning, Femme Fatale, I'm Waiting for the Man, Venus and Furs, Run, 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 All Tomorrow's Parties. All those six songs are killer. On side two. Notice, by the way, you have one song sung by Nico on side two and two songs sung by Nico on side three. Everything else is sung by Lou Reed himself. Kind of impressive. Side two is Heroin, There She Goes Again, I'll Be Your Mirror, and then the slightly less relatable Black Angel's Death Song and European Sun, which I never really enjoyed that much. But, out of the 11 songs on here, I would say 9 of them are standards for me. So I gotta say that while this album does not really like define the actual 60s because it was had a low listenership, it's an interesting and great album. But I think it is better than the Hendrix albums. So if we're judging this list based purely on how much value there is intrinsic to the album and not, whether or not it was relevant to the 60s, I would say this album is up with the Doors album. It's sort of like the East Coast version of that. Um, I think and I think I'll demote Hendrix album because some of these songs get kind of tiring. They're stoner anthems, really, in many cases, but they are brilliant. And the Electric Ladyland it's a more sophisticated music, trippier for sure, more experimental, but it's not as commercially oriented, and that kind of gives it counterweight to the fact that it lacks sort of structure, if you will. Anyway, we can move on, I think. David Bowie. Is this the first David Bowie album? Because David Bowie in the 60s was not David Bowie in the 70s. David Bowie in the 60s was far less of a phenomenon, of a hero, of a trailblazer. He was more of a he was just sort of starting out. And we'll look at his we'll look at the track list so we can make a quick assessment. June 1967. Yeah, I mean he was a little bit of it's impressive that he even got an album out this early for himself because he really is a 70s kind of dude. Um, but then again, he is an early 70s dude, so that's not really that unusual to have one album out in the mid 67 or whatever. Anyway, track list. Oh yeah, none of these are ringing a lot of bells. Um, and these are all written by him. So unlike Lou Reed, he did not write the best 67 lyrics. Lou Reed, for some reason, I mean, Bowie was a huge fan of Lou Reed. A huge, he sort of tried to groom him at one point because in the 70s, David Bowie was a way bigger star than Lou Reed. But Lou Reed was a better lyricist earlier on, and you compare this with the Velvet Underground album, and it really shows. It's almost a cringe moment to put this in between these two. It's like it's such a farcical expression. I think yeah, I think bad. I think bad, probably bad, or yeah. I'll have to give it another listen through, but I think his debut album was kind of didn't take a lot of risks. What didn't really have the best resources going into it. It was sort of just like a high. It was sort of like a milestone for his discography, but not much else that is really necessary for an audiophile or a musician in this day and age to look back at. But as a curiosity, you should definitely listen to it, because how many people are going to listen to the very first David Bowie album, top to bottom? Not that many. So you'll kind of be in a league of your own if you do that. Anyway, Trout Mask Replica. Ooh, this is a fun album. Yeah. Well, I'll do this and then it'll do the Moody Blues. Uh, Days of Future Past. John Lodge. I had a chance to see him, and I kind of I just didn't want to spend the money on it because these tickets are so expensive these days. And it's really sad because the Days of Future Past, he was going to perform the entire album without the whole Moody Blues band, but just by himself as the singer. And he's not going to be around forever, so I really needed to should have done it. I just feel like it was a little random. A lot of these guys, they seem random. This music is what, 60, 50 years old, 50 something years old. Right? Okay. Trump has this is caps parts. Um, it's what you see smoke actually. It's Trump masks. 69 cases in the 60s. It's, as late as it can possibly be in 60s, 67 really too, let's be honest. It's a double album. Don Van Voot. Um, it's like range. Uh, it's range, but it's like quirky range. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's true. Better than the post debut. However, I'll say it's not my style, but I recommend it. It's just it does it's nice. It's gay. Not everything was eccentric. The genius wanted to make music that was pushing the boundaries of what was tolerable for years. So he made these weird bluesy, fetishistic sort of fringe songs that were basically about a bunch of guys trying to be as random as possible. And the idea was to get you to sort of rewire your brain to music and sort of bring your it was a way of talking about underground thing, punk, proto punk, but Trout Mask Replica, got really far all that, some stuff, sometimes that, but that was also kind of punk before punk too. It was sort of trying to be weird for just the sake of being weird and pushing some sort of conceptual boundary. Um, it is as bad as it sounds. You shouldn't be afraid of it. It's not that horrendous, but it's definitely not something that you just listen to at the end of the night, or while you're on your commutes and you're having kind of a rough morning. You wouldn't listen to this. It's not relaxing. Some of it is, but overall, it's jarring. And you have to remember that it's sort of a study in music. And then eventually you probably get to a point where you don't even mind listening to it, or maybe even just enjoy it outright. I haven't done it yet. I should, but I haven't put in the time. Honestly, I don't think it's that hard of music to appreciate if you just put in a little bit more time. There's a badge of honor, or a merit badge, let's say, Scout's honor, in listening to Captain Beefheart. It's just not it's not for everyone, and I think that's by design. So I do recommend it, but I can't say that it's music I'm not going to promise that you'll enjoy it. Okay, up next, Moody Blues. This is obviously more recommendable than Trout Mask Replica. Uh, I think it's maybe where Axis Bolt of Love is. It's sort of trying to be something that it's sort of trying to be something that might not really be. I think in some ways it's a commentary on sort of life in the post-war Europe, with the Iron Curtain and the revamped economies and kind of like society being just sort of restructured blatantly per the wishes of the new mechanical elite. We're leaving the atomic age and entering the digital age slowly but surely. Life has sort of become staid and voided, emotionless and ambient. Days of Future Past, there's a deep nostalgia laden in it that is almost a torture to sort of even like dwell on, but somehow you end up doing it because the music is so beautiful. I think Nights in White Satin is the starling of this album, and then another a song that is quite sterling is Forever Afternoon. Um, but this is really a album you play in the background. Look how many different writers there were. It wasn't all John Lodge. Kind of surprised by this. Lead singer changes up too. I didn't really have any sense for that. Uh, Justin Hayward. Are these guys? How many of these guys are still alive? Okay, three at least are still alive. And these two guys, they look the same. Oh no, they don't. Same mustache, sort of. Funny, really funny look. Graham Edge and Ray Thomas. Anyway, they're yeah. So a lot of these guys are still alive. I will have to listen to Red Wave Night. It does sound like a fun song. It's not even on this. I don't know why they mentioned it. Oh, that was the name of the is an alias for Justin Hayward. Anyway, so this album is they also released it in quadraphonic, which is I guess not surprising. This is sort of like a Pink Floyd album before Pink Floyd did an album. Um, that's the coolest thing I can say about it. It's like a proto Pink Floyd sort of moody concept album. It's definitely up there with Axis Bolt of Love as like this starburst sort of concept album that echoes beauty but doesn't really possess it as much as it would like to. Anyway, up next is Led Zeppelin 2. Oh, this is probably my favorite album of the entire 60s. Um, Moody Blues, better than Moody Blues for sure. Really good album. I've listened to it several times. I would say maybe the actual 60s because it has a whole lot of love. Um, it has, what Moby Dick. It has What Is and What Should Never Be. It has Thank You. It has um, that one Willie Dixon anthem that they sort of rip off at the end. Bring It On Home. Let's look at the track list in case I'm missing anything essential. The Lemon Song, Heartbreaker, Ramble On, Live and Love and Made. Yeah. So every song on here I adore. If I could have made a song like any of these, I probably would retire because they're that good. It is far better than like the Hendrix songs below it. Like the Hendrix albums are great albums, but it just like give you a sense of scale. Led Zeppelin 2 is probably like 5 times as good, maybe four, maybe five's a little much, but 3 or 4 times as good, and that's a multiplying. It's multiplied. Um, yeah, even the Frank Zappa album isn't that good, and even the Velvet Underground album is like a little worse, and the Doors album, I might start to reevaluate the Doors debut album because Light My Fire, The End, um, uh, Break On Through. Yeah, this is kind of a goofy album by comparison. I'm gonna knock it down to interesting and great. I don't think it's in the same place as and maybe even really good album. I've listened to it several times. Maybe even that. I mean, I think I'll put it there. I think Hendrix is sort of right below Velvet Underground debut and Led Zeppelin 2. And those are the two best. But for Hendrix to have two albums that's up there is really kind of remarkable because he was sort of a one man show and on some layer of it all. Cream. Okay, Disarray Gears. Okay, well this is sort of a different. People like Cream is a fun band to talk about. I think Cream is a very good like musician networking band. All musicians kind of have to like Cream. They're the original power trio. They were a British version of Jimi Hendrix Experience. I think they're the only band that really reflects that style just as much as Hendrix does. Like they're sort of it's sort of the night and day of Hendrix is obviously the night because he's black, and Cream is the day because they're all white and they're British. But Disraeli Gears is funny because Disraeli Gears is named after their like a prime minister from like almost 100 years before or whatever it was. So it's a very British sort of theme. Strange Brew, Sunshine of Your Love, Tales of Brave Ulysses, Swalbar. Hmm. This almost isn't the best Cream album. Um, but the thing about Cream's albums is that they kind of meld into the background in a way that I think Hendrix might not be as good at. So while Hendrix's albums have more of like a um, I'll put it here. I think a really good album. I've listened to it several times. I don't think it's like it's got the same like product value that some of the Hendrix albums have, but I think it's like edging towards that. And this is one Cream album. Cheap Thrills. Who is this? Oh, Big Brother and the Holding Company, right? We'll do that one next. Obviously, Big Brother and Holding Company was the band that Janis Joplin sang for. She died in my home. She actually she didn't die there, but the last place she lived was or had a property was in right near where I'm from, where I grew up in the town over, just basically a short drive over the hill, about 10 minutes or less. And she's she's kind of a local legend for that, I suppose. She's also not even from there though. I mean, she's not from the San Francisco Haight Ashbury. Maybe she ended up there, but she's from Texas. She does tip of Houston area, I believe, and she typifies everything that is great about Port Arthur. I think that's near Texas. Sorry, near Houston. I don't really know. It's funny to think of her as this like Texan when she's sort of been stylized as a flower child. I think it's part of the contrast. Maybe there's some tree. There's some tree. So this is not so this is the album. This is your I think she got heroin. Look at that. That's so real. I didn't know I cast from him sandwich. That was gonna be comparable. But she's I know that she's 5 overs. Um, I didn't know in Europe, Los Angeles. I've trip. Like what it is customers. I just think it's interesting. Like she died at Kirk, you know, like he died in a hotel. She died in a hotel. Then they have sort of so not in a way. And he shot himself too. You know, it's strange they always in this hotel. I guess it's walking hours over this inside road. So this album, okay, the actual content of the album, just sort of thing to do that. But and the whole thing, yeah, this, by the way, the cartoonist is the Mary. 70s cartoonist, Spark I guess not on this issue, this issue, but yeah, that's what was the main issue, right? Okay, so I found Moondog, the guitarist Moondog. I've never heard of Moondog, but Sam Andrew, Andrew, few guitars. Thrills. Sorry, that the album isn't. The album's called Cheap Thrills. That's right. It's got Summertime, Piece of My Heart, Ball and Chain. Does it have me and Bobby McGee? I don't know. So this album is fun. It's a fun album. I would give it like a maybe that's very nice. The first time was enough for me. I think it is kind of a played out album. I think the songs are a little like ridiculous. They're kind of maudlin and hysterical. I mean, not maudlin, but they're just kind of like they're kind of hyperactive and sort of they kind of have they're in your face and you know they rock, but they're just sort of like hysterical. I they don't really it's like that White Rabbit song by Jefferson Airplane. It's like how many times can you listen to that before you like start to go demented? I think Cheap Thrills has that sort of conundrum for itself. Anyway, up next is I don't really think that she was the best vocalist and songwriter ever, but she just kind of she carried a certain attitude that you needed to hear at least once in order to understand what music could sound like. But I don't know if it would have I don't know if it would have replicated into other contexts and into other later albums. I don't think it would have like transferred or translated or whatever smoothly. I think she would have lost something over the years because her personality was always kind of on the verge in a way. So to me, yeah, just it doesn't. She doesn't seem stable enough for that kind of for the necessary consistency to make that album be what it be more than a one off, and not the best one off album. Unfortunately, I do like it, but it's not uh the best in the world or the best on this list. Um, Buffalo Springfield, okay. This is going to be a tough one to evaluate because their music is it's like country music that's sort of irrelevant, but then they have the, one hit wonder off of their album that's like, they're kind of a one hit wonder effectively. Okay, they have, yeah, what, okay, this is the second one. This one's kind of good. 66. All right, that's cool for what it's worth. These, okay, there's some tie-ins with the Beach Boys I didn't know about. The same recording studio as the Wall of Sound replica that Brian Wilson established. That's kind of neat. Neil Young was famously in this band, and Stephen Stills. This was before Crosby, Stills, and Nash, or Crosby, Stills, and Nash and Young, or whatever. R.I.P. By the way, to David Crosby, incredible luminary of psychedelia, free love, social activist at its finest, a poet. I don't know much about all his work, but I'll tell you that he really helped define the '60s and bring context to the silent majority during Vietnam, who kind of needed sort of a looking glass into the hearts and minds of the counterculture. I think David Cross was really an exemplar, and later on, he never really stopped doing that kind of thing. I should probably know more about it than I do, honestly. And it's sad that he died. He was very old. I listened to him on Howard Stern. Saw a video, and he knew he was gonna die or something, and he sort of was like he was like expressed a sentiment about how he had to accept that he was gonna die. And I thought it was sort of maudlin or hysterical, but he literally a couple years later he just died from some sort. I don't remember the cause of death, but it was relatively natural. And it's funny that he would have the sort of the prescience or the foresight to just be like, yeah, in like 2 years I'll be dead, and I know that. And to me, only like a real genius can have that kind of foresight. I mean, maybe people who aren't geniuses do that too, but I just think that it definitely shows intelligence to know that you're going to be dead in a couple years, and without there being some sort of mammoth symptom like a boil tumor on your forehead or something, without some mammoth symptom, like the fact that you could just have like that prescience and foresight is incredibly remarkable, beyond remarkable, really. It's kind of brilliant, low key, and I think I need to learn more about David Crosby, if in order to understand the '60s better, and I recommend that you do so as well. Anyway, this album though, I don't think that first of all, David Crosby isn't even in this album. He forms up with these guys later on. This is '66, right? December '66. Okay, that's kind of cool. I don't know if resting on For What It's Worth and maybe some other deep cuts that are pretty cool is gonna get this very high. Um, I would probably say it's up by That's Very Nice. The First Time Was Enough for Me, but there's probably so much filler that it has to be demoted to Not My Style, but I'll recommend it. For What It's Worth is a an amazing little ditty of music. It's a short 2 minute something song, I believe. Uh, and it wasn't even in the original release. Funny enough, yeah, 2 minutes and 40 seconds. It's a ditty. It's a tight rhythmically tight song. Um, I'll put it up. That's nice. The First Time Was Enough for Me. I think it does have this album is something that you should check out. Um, but you might only listen to it once. Uh, okay, up next. Trying to be have as much integrity as possible. Let's see. Let's do the next David Bowie um album or whatever it was, the one following his trashy debut. Um, I don't know. I like to make fun of David Bowie because he's so good that but then he's also got all these obvious flaws, dude. It's like a cakewalk making fun of him. Um, so literally the first album was called David Bowie, and it was so bad it made 125th that his next album was also called David Bowie. Because he like it literally he had to redo it. I mean, in terms of marketing, he just had to redo it. Uh, Space Oddity. Well, that alone will put you fairly high on my list. Um, a lot of these other songs do seem fairly demented, or sort of slipstreamy, dreamy, and kind of awkward, and like a wild goose chase, or you're plummeting down the rabbit hole. But it's still better than the first one. I'm not gonna say I don't like it. I'm gonna say not my style, but I'll recommend it. I'll say it's gonna be higher, right? Oh, I love the sound of the pouring rain right outside my room. It's beauteous. That's very nice. The First Time Was Enough for Me. Good album. I like it. Album I like it. I think this album is probably got it's like a lot more listeners. It's eccentric and science fiction oriented. It's also fairly charming. So it's charming album. Probably not the main slam album that is other was. But it is the one I like is kind of like because he's with you know 1 hour in, and I was movie. Okay, with lots of this sense. What's the Beatles? Revolver. What a cool name. Make it look too cool. You know, triangle super. Revolver. Album. You know, funny first thing you get. Revolver gun. You get the Beatles on the That's the Beatles on this. Okay. Eleanor Beatles. Beatles. High because it's the Beatles album. It's one better known ones. Paperback writer. Sorry, Octet. Max Eleanor. Which is stories here like community had. All legendary album. Not going to be anecdote. Production of Revolver. Yeah, this would be our care of fucking over. Yes, okay. Yeah, I guess I just mountain. Well, you just have to climb before you go to Everest. So, yeah, just fucking albums. Many people's some information fucking swarming on. Okay, it's not out random people in bars and on the streets, perhaps. AW. Okay, Taxman. Over Yellow Submarine. I'm just gonna give it high because it's got Eleanor Rigby, which was sung by Ringo Starr, which is kind of cool. And then Here, There, and Everywhere, which is a great song. I think that was my mom's favorite song last time I asked her. Tomorrow Never Knows, it's a good one. Trippy. And Your Bird Can Sing. Taxman. I don't know. Okay, so this music is all really like engaging, but it's also it's engaging without being compelling. Like there's a difference between like rock music where you're just fascinated by the music and how it's made and the sound, and then music that's sort of like it's sort of like really like it's sort of like it kind of seduces you, but you don't really care about how it's produced. I think the Beatles music has that fault where it's like you don't care that much about the production in many cases, but you do like to hear it. And that to me is why I sort of classify it as a lullaby for adults. I think this is something sort of childish about the Beatles, but that childishness is why it's such a mainstay. Because at the end of the day, we're all overgrown children anyway. But it doesn't really feel like the most adult or mature or arrived music. Um, it feels kind of juvenile and square. uh like in some sort of musical bubble of like emotional immaturity. um it's puerile really, but it's a good album. I like it. I think I'm lower to That's Very Nice. The First Time was enough for me because it's got some good songs, but they're not bangers. They're just sort of like trippy, wild songs that are actually very like overproduced and sort of contained in a kind of a nutshell of like simpleton British towny junk that is like supposed to be relatable, but I find it kind of like demented and overly middle class in its aim. Um, it feels like it sounds like liquid bourgeois or whatever. It sounds like like musical bourgeois. So yeah, I just feel like my brain is like melted every time I listen to the Beatles, and I kind of want to stop talking about it for now. We'll have to return, but for now I'm gonna go to let's do Roy Orbison in Dreams. Okay, so this was a later Roy Orbison album. He had earlier music. I don't know if he was as famous in his heyday as he was when he made this album. Like he might have had a comeback like Elvis, but he might have been like the guy that no one really cared about, even like when he was at his peak. So it's hard. I don't know the history. Is what I'm saying about Roy Orbison. I think he's easy to sort of mention as some kind of mainstay of Dream Idol or whatever the fuck kind of music this is. But I just don't. I'm not convinced. Maybe it's called. Is this country? I don't know. I'm not convinced that this music is representative of its own genre the way that because I'm just so unacquainted with the genre that I have no way I can't promise you that Roy Orbison is really that big of a deal in his own field. But as someone who just hears about him on the radio and in movies and on the occasional TV rerun, he seems like a pretty big deal, pretty big fucking deal. This is considered rock and roll, so it's early rock and roll. It's like I guess oh, this is early '60s. This is '63. Jeez, this is the earliest album so far we've reviewed. And in that case, it's pretty good. I mean, In Dreams is a standard. This is back when they didn't even know if rock wasn't jazz yet. They still kind of were conflating it with jazz and maybe even classical to some extent. So they were kind of giving. They were kind of. It was kind of a cat. This kind of music was sort of a catch-all in the culture, fairly vanilla, right? Definition vanilla. Um, I can tell you I don't know that many songs on this. Maybe a mistake, really. Blue Bayou. So the single was released beforehand. Okay, I'm. This is like Orville Redenbacher, reading his Wikipedia and learning that he was like, reinvented popcorn, and you're like, whoa, that's kind of cool. But then you keep reading about it, and you're like, all right, how far down the rabbit hole can I go with this? It's like, ugh. All right, I'll do this. Not my style, but I'll recommend it. It's probably good, but it's like do I instinctively listen to this kind of music? No. I mean, I think it's a little bit of a. I think as weird as Trout Mask Replica is, this is probably unintentionally feels weird. Just like it's like naturally weird, whereas this is like unnaturally weird. It's sort of a funny dichotomy there. Okay, up next, but they're really like you know, both of the same clock at the end of the day. It's like eccentric, but that's not eccentric. Which is sort of sad. Anyway, honestly, Robertson's cool. So is Don Van Vliet, whatever the fuck. Don Van Vliet. See that? That's fast. Don Van Vliet. Okay. Rolling Stones. These 60 albums aren't that easy. Like, you recognize some of the titles are really small from distance. Okay, well, Strawberry Alarm Clock. Some people probably heard this before, so it'll be, it won't be impossible. But here's slowing down for reasons I understand. Some shit on some programs. I think we're gonna make the time right though, because uh, some of these won't probably do, and what we'll do will be like reflective of uh, a uh, fairly vast swath of 60s music anyway. And even if everything will be more than enough for the average listener to palpate, whatever. The palate, the taste sort of palate. Okay, sorry, my brain's melting. Okay, hold this album, my Wikipedia can't be this. It's like, oh, using the browser. That's fine. Okay, put it on new. Okay, what's the same? Browser rates. Brothers. Jesus is I mean, okay, so Strawberry Alarm was more famous back in the day, and it kind of stayed famous in a kitschy sort of way into the 80s. But then now I think people kind of like kind of find it sort of random. Although it's I guess it's just like part of the psychedelic rock movement that came and went in the late 60s that like was sort of like what never really headlined but was always kind of like the opening act, the special guest star or whatever. So Strawberry Alarm Clock, this got some albums. Incense and Peppermint, so that's the one. Wait, is that not what we're doing? Oh, they have a number on this list. Whoever made this list really likes Strawberry Alarm Clock. Damn. I think three Strawberry Alarm Clock albums are on this list. So they do Incense and Peppermints. I gotta listen to more of them. I know who they are, but like I guess not really because the guy who made this list made put three of them on here. Um, all right, yeah, okay. This is gonna be some very trippy sort of not my style, but I'll recommend it. I can already tell. It's sort of not very clear what they're writing their songs about. It's there's unpolished wishy-washiness that has sort of like flash in the pan, sort of ambient appeal, but is not um definitive of really anything. Doesn't really take a stance on anything. Um, but yeah, if you're just bored with a couple friends and you want to listen to some goofy background music for a laugh, Strawberry Alarm Clock is probably just as funny as Roy Orbison or uh, Captain Beefheart. So anyway, up next, we'll just knock out the Strawberry Alarm Clock because I don't want to see it anymore. Okay, Wake Up It's Tomorrow. That's the next one. 1968. No, no, that's actually kind of a badass album cover for what they are. Let me see if I know any of these songs. They have literally no. This the guy loves this. The guy who made this album loves this because I swear none of these songs are famous. Um, I'll put it in. Not I'll give it the benefit of the doubt and just say whoever made this list adores it as it's their favorite band. So not my style. All right, next one. Going back. Wake Up It's Tomorrow. Sit with the Guru. Okay, this is. I can see why this is considered classic 60s music because it's very on the nose about how 60s it is. It seems like it's almost like 60s as a gimmick. Like they're sort of like they don't really have a they really like that they're part of the 60s and they're just sort of embracing it wholeheartedly without really doing much else of anything. So that's kind of nice. But it's all fairly subpar, I think, or maybe at best it would be mid, as it were, mid. Okay, Donovan, someone who I can actually tolerate. Okay, or appreciate. Sorry, I could tolerate a Strawberry Alarm Clock, but I can't appreciate it. Donovan album. I think I'm belaboring some of these points for sure. I mean, as much as it's hard to listen to these albums, how hard can it be to? Must be far harder to listen to me comment on them, obliquely. Especially when I haven't even listened to so many of their tracks. Anyway, what been did and what's been did and what's been hid. Oh, dude, this guy's a drunk. Okay, he writes like a drunkard. Sunshine Superman. He's like the best Scottish songwriter, but that's like what does that say? He's just gonna like he's basically the best alcoholic songwriter. Um, Sunshine Superman, Season of the Witch, Guinevere. I actually dig this. This is kind of styling, but it's a little like I don't know, insipid, maybe incel like. The guy kind of seems like an incel for the 60s. Not I mean, like not as cool as Bob Dylan, but like I mean, it doesn't really sound that cool. Slightly less cool than Bob Dylan doesn't sound that cool to me personally. Um, I can't say this is like my favorite album ever. Haven't really listened to it. I would say that it's a good album. I like it. I would say that. And I'm being a little. I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. It could be that's very nice, but the first time was enough for me. It could be a tear down, but giving it the benefit of the doubt, I'm gonna say good album. I like it. Up next, okay. Well, just to knock out Bob Dylan stuff, since I just mentioned him, we'll do another Bob Dylan album. Um, this one seems a little more quaint and down to earth. Is this the first one? No, it's the first one. It's like, yeah, it's like it's like Western lesbian face. It's just, like, yeah, it's literally literally looks like 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 he's sure that the child's fine. Um, it's not crazy. In the early 60s, he was popular because like the Beatles are popular, so he was popular. He was in that decade, like Louis Armstrong, for sure. And that changed because Asia basically starts in the program. He became a little like being involved in the voice with feminine part of it and style for singer songwriting. He's maybe. But like the funny started out as like this really part of folk movement, sort of the 60s folk movement, whatever. With maybe okay, maybe back home, how six months because I mean the writing like was only 1965 is fucking incredible because that song is kind of rocking and just for essentially all of the hard rock album, any sort of approximation of hard rock album that I've been released. 65 is kind of really the most rock music. And that song is basically the best rock music. And electric hard rock music. So you gotta give that one song credit. But I don't think the album itself is super. I don't maybe just have to put a fish on this one. See how he's on that one. 66. He looks like he's like 30 years old. He looks like he's like he aged like 15 years from when he did his like first two albums. And his first two albums were strong albums. Greatest hits. He's already doing a greatest hits by 1967. Yeah, this is kind of scary. It's kind of scary how like appreciated this dude is. Okay, Nashville Skyline. Yeah, by the time he's doing Nashville Skyline, I think he just stopped giving a shit. And he's like, I'll just do anything because he's probably bored. Oh, but this one's good because it's got the duet with Johnny Cash, which has aged pretty well. Some of those other albums probably haven't aged that well. Some of the, even though they're all relatively great, but they Lay Lady Lay. Okay, I'll say this one is a good album. I'm just kind of surprised that I am having this opinion here. I would say it is. I would say it's a little. It's up with the Donovan one. Say it's a little bit good album. I like it. Yeah, it's charming. It's crazy how in the '60s, man, like there was only so much you could do, and like wearing like a jacket with a bunch of pins and patches on it was like cool. And then if you made an album while you had a jacket with pins and patches, you were really cool. And if you smoked a cigarette on top of all that, you were just like you were like the coolest. And then at the same time, like you could go turn around and wear a funny hat and with a fucking weird like and just hold a guitar and take a photo, and the camera would be way down towards the ground, and you'd be holding the guitar in front of you while the camera's almost at the ground, and you look like a giant because it's aiming up at you and you're smiling. and that's like styling. These are like in this day and age, if you did those photos, you would be considered like a failure on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. But here it's like it just kind of works. It was like the first time anyone had ever thought to do it. Okay. That's funny. He did an album named after a Texas outlaw. So he did appreciate the folksy stuff. I think he maybe by the time he did Highway 61 revisited, he just sort of thought that like, there was more to folk than just like, being, a Luddite or hating on like the industrialization of and mechanization of the world. I mean, on some level there's a working class sympathy of in every stripe with Dylan. So there's something to be said about that. Anyway, an hour and 20. We'll do Booker T and MG's Green Onions. Ugh. This one this one was Stax Records. My old guitar teacher, who I saw not for that long, but it was a considerable length of time, I suppose. He toured for them and performed for them, and he also knew the main guitarist who wrote um, Green Onions and all this. Um, they're not they tour and they're not completely gone. I mean, they're an old band, but they're still kind of around, alive and kicking. 1962. Man, the early 60s is fascinating because all that music is like really kind of low key and it's sort of intention, it's sort of hidden intention, and there's this sort of creeping on moodiness that like hits you like a hurricane from far away. Like it's like when you see a hurricane in the distance and you don't really know what it is, and you're like, oh, that's a hurricane. All these early '60s albums are like they're kind of seedy and sort of mysterious, way different than the high toned stuff from the late '60s. They're almost desperate for attention. Okay, these ones are very subdued. Green Onions, I Got a Woman, Twist and Shout, Yeah, I mean these are all fairly fine. I mean, it's only six. Oh, there's a side two also. Okay, not really as accounted for, I guess. I don't know. Smoking. Okay, well this album is this album kind of seems like it might be a lot starting to start out with. I would say it's not my style, but I'll recommend it. I mean, Green Onions is great, but it's like, am I gonna listen to the whole fucking album? It's like, I mean, I don't know. It's like, am I like, it's just like, does it really have the entertainment value? Someone probably thinks it does. I haven't met them. Okay, the Mamas in the Pop. Maybe I have. Maybe my guitar teacher finds it the most entertaining thing ever. Mamas, Papas. Uh, Mama Cass Elliott. Oh, she was like a big old fat lady. Okay. Huh, I didn't realize that. And then she died choking on a ham sandwich. So was this band kind of like a joke or something? I guess the music. It's like, I mean, I can understand why Karen Carpenter would be like sort of funny because she's like really young and plays the drums, but like Mama Cass is, I don't know. This is funny. It's true. It's weird. It's like a weird group, the Mamas and the Papas. Let me find their album. The I think it's that one. No, it's not that one. No, no. If you can believe your eyes and ears, it's their debut. Monday, Monday, California Dreamin'. Oh yeah, that's like the one song they're known for. Some of these are written by um the Beatles guys. They had their hands in every pie, didn't they? Um Spanish Harlem. I don't know. I mean, this is probably more listenable than Green Onions in some ways, but I would say it's about in the same boat. This little white person, Green Onions. That makes sense. It's the pop Green Onions, and Green Onions is the R&B. Moms and the Papas, if you can believe your eyes and ears. It's just a mouthful. Okay, up next. This one's okay. This one's a really good album, just to break out of the monotony and start with the best. 21st Century Schizoid Man, I think is the name of the album. If not, it's definitely a song on it. Schizoid Man. Oh, okay, the album is in the Quarterly Prince. That's right. In 69. Show Hotel's album, The Airplane Over the Sea, sounds almost like it's the same for inspiration for physiology. Like it's taking the cadence or whatever, the meter from that. But I don't know. Not worth it. I talked when it happened. Child Court came. Personally, Road Lake. So I didn't know this is like before they did BLP. Person that performer, and it's also for yes. Maybe he was Robert Fripp. Stop Shinner, yes. What was he in? Besides Kid was is he only okay, like um sounds like I mean it seems like kind of like a it's very like, aggressive eye catching album. I could live up of not just irritating to have to bear with probably 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 one of the best we have. Um that's I love and I like all of it. Right, definitely the one at least there's Superman is fabulous. I would say maybe at the highest level. The highest side goes to the highest tier. The money I don't know. Okay, let's see the starting peppers. We're just gonna knock out all the recognizable ones. Just to scratch your itch. Um okay, peppers. This is probably the most iconic album world or something we have released more, but my hair is like this album like look at it like oh that's that Beatles album. Like, everyone's it's incredibly famous. Some would say it's the best album ever, which is I think a little much. I mean, it looks like a fucking Monty Python, pastiche. It doesn't really look like the album cover doesn't look that amazing, but like I guess because the Beatles broke up, it's just hindsight sees 2020. I don't know. When I'm 64, Day in the Life, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band reprise, Lovely Rita, with or without, with you, within you, without you, fixing a hole. It's pretty good. Losing the Scar of Diamonds, with a little help from my friends, Sgt. Pepper. So where would I put this? I mean, these are like this is kind of like the Are You Experience situation, maybe or maybe not. I don't know. It's like if you look at the Hendrix albums, there's a lot of like there's some of them are like more commercial and some of them are a little more like experimental. This one's a little more experimental, but it's kind of in the middle. Like it still has commercial throngs and attempts. But not but it's I guess it's like Electric Ladyland. But it's cuz it's crazy, but it's not so crazy that you end up putting in the dumpster tier like Trout Mask Replica is. I would say it's probably interesting and great album. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I don't like. It's not my favorite album, but it's like I can't deny that it has panache and verve and um, um, it's vivid, clearly. One thing, my one critique is that it seems a little superficial in its message. Seems like a very kind of sort of. It seems like it almost seems like a Christmas album, but for hippies or whatever the case may be. Um, Papas and Mamas again. The Love and Spoonful. We can do another Rolling Stones one. We only did like one, right? Okay. Out of our hands. This must be a very early one with Brian Jones, even. Okay, fun. I do prefer the Rolling Stones in most cases to the Beatles, but doing this sort of comparison episode of the Remembering Truth podcast, I find that like a lot of the Beatles stuff is actually a little more substantial than as a vinyl record product, as a shelf, a shelvable product. It's a little more substantial than I could put together, but not like excessively so. Just like a noticeable difference in my sort of low ball assessment of their shelf life or whatever you call it, um, their shelvability, top shelf um, allure. Okay, this isn't the album. This isn't the discography. What I'll have to do is I'll just have to go straight to the discographies. Newest hitmakers, England's newest hitmakers. Funny, funny names. Out of our heads, 65. Okay, it's just like it's all just R&B. So, like I was saying about Bob Dylan doing like in August, he came out with like a Rolling Stone or whatever. These guys came out with I Can't Get No Satisfaction before, like a month or like about a month before, maybe a month exactly. Um, and that song blows all the great. There's the monumental quality to like a Rolling Stone, the song, but I Can't Get No Satisfaction blows that out of the water. And in fact, like a Rolling Stone, the song literally it's almost like a month later he wrote a song. I can be like these guys. Hey, 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 I'm Bob Dylan. I can do anything. And so he comes out with a song that's literally the Rolling Stones, like I Can't Get No Satisfaction. He's commenting on it. He's replying to it. He's reprising it with like a Rolling Stone. It's a very terrible name for a song at that time because I Can't Get No Satisfaction had just come out, just dropped or released. And this song is killer. And of course, Rolling Stone magazine considers it like the second best song ever. Maybe like a Rolling Stone, they consider the first one. But I think this one is a little better in the sense that it was released a month sooner, and it just you would wait a month and then you'd hear this other song by Dylan that literally had the name of the band you just learned to love in its title. I mean, it's a little weird, and in the lyrics, the chorus, right? It's a little weird, but maybe back then people didn't care that much about those kinds of things. If they're just enjoying their life, they probably weren't, tying it all together like that as much as you might, as sort of an intellectual person might tend to do. Maybe the average, working youth didn't really, make overly, condemn them for that association, or even pick up on it. So this is Out of Our Heads. Great album. Um, I don't know if the whole album is. Let's see, like this. It's got the Spider and the Fly. This one's got spunk, dude. It's very British. I mean, it's like fun British. I'll do this one. I think I'll give it high praise. Okay. A really good album. I've listened several times to it. Really, I haven't, but I can just tell it's got spunk to it. Um, Wednesday morning, 3 a.m. Simon and Garfunkel. Okay, well that one will be. You can do Simon and Garfunkel to change up notch. Kick it down not really. Um, just check this out for you. Like Garfunkel. It's their debut album. Clever name, or at least ambient. Uh, it's sort of interstitial. This morning, 3 a.m. It's all about New York City. Something great about that. The sound of silence, overdubbed. The times they're changing cover. That's all written by Paul Simon. I guess he's sort of the New York version of but they were that was roots there. But that was a couple years later. 65. The sound of silence. 60 recorded March 10th, 1964. I didn't realize it was that old. It was 67, 68. Song. 64. Dude. That was 19. That's the early 63. I mean, just about. Wow. Wow. Anyways, this album, top to bottom, I don't know if this album's really like a rocker. I mean, it's just sort of a curiosity. Um, but, like, it's like there's one track. You just make the album so much more splendid than you ever thought possible. So, um, and that, my expectations for my imagination was exceeded. I was going to do the album, still time to my hands. I just want to in higher brackets. It's basically one track album. It's pretty, pretty good nonetheless. It doesn't have to have one good track. Really. Try to move that way. All right, I'm just stop listening to part two, I think, later. Let's count up how much I've done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Okay, I guess I gotta do 30. And there's probably more than 30 here. I'll do love. Like this one's like this one I've been looking at during this podcast every now and again. L is for the way you look. That's me. There's the LOVE album from '65, but that's not what we're going with. We're I think the band is called Love, maybe. Yeah, we'll just. I don't know what the album is actually called. Forever Changes might be it. Okay. Yeah, Forever Changes. 67. This is kind of a year. This is kind of like crazy year. Um, I don't remember if this was even good. I think it's okay because I have listened to it. But I just don't remember like my reactions that well, my sense impressions. Do. I would say not my style, but I'll recommend it. When I listened to it, I just wasn't sent away into my Wonderland headspace that much. But it wasn't bad. It was tall. It was passable. Okay, CCR. This one has been underrepresented on this podcast episode, or even really at all. But maybe every podcast episode should have CCR as the intro song. I don't know. Okay. Hmm. Which one is this? Is that it? No. No. This is this album. Cosmos. Man, I really wish I lived in the 60s all of a sudden. I'm like obsessed. Is that CCR? That might not be CCR. It might be like the band. I think that's the band. Kind of funny that they were Canadian as well as American. I don't associate the band with Canada. Music from Big Pink? No, that's not it. The band. Okay, this is it. All right. Up on Cripple Creek. The night they drove Old Dixie down. Great. This is a great album. I like those two songs. Um, a lot. This is their second album. Is it? It's all pretty good stuff. I think side one is probably stronger than side two. Uh, I would say good album. I like it. Um, can't speak for every song on here. Honestly, it seems a little. It seems like it could be a little dicey at moments. However, it's either here or here. I don't think I could go further than up the notch or down a notch than that. Okay. Do. Sound. The Association. That was a big one. These are gonna get into ones where it's like you just don't even know, like so many. Okay, we'll do certain Beach Boys. Um, you might not even know like the main song they're known for, but you still like have to give an assessment on it. It's like, yeah, I'll do the Association first, just to like see how much wiggle room there is. I will say that a lot of the '60s albums, if you just they seem like they were more designed for kind of like background music or lounge music, because lounge music was a bigger phenomenon back then. I think. I mean, this what was branded or marketed as lounge music was more was I think is higher quality than it ended up being in later years. And the Association in, is a band that's also kind of adjacent to lounge music, even though it's very much a pop rock sort of attempt. Even though really this on the first single from um, where's this? The dugout, the dugout, but okay, okay, Renaissance, no, outside, no, I think it's then along comes the Association. Yes. Um, geez, no, these guys that way. No, I think no, like this is music. I don't know what names to it. But not sound well. Because I've listened, I've been I don't find the music for. I just I like it. it's not. I think even from album, other collection. Um, Surfing USA. Right now before. Wow, easier. One thing is really like you're slowing down. And this is free. I was just thinking about strong, kind of progressive sort of moments. Equal start progressive. Um, these are, that was a day one thing. Version. Surfing was a shut down on top of driven. Okay. I'll say it's pretty good stuff. Okay. Now I thought it was legend. You know, mine's paw, mine's paw, or by its paw, right? Okay, or its mane, whatever. Probably. I mean, it's a goofy album. Um, there's a couple albums by the Trogs on here. They really have all the fucking like B-rate bands. It's something I wanted. I wish I was a little more ready to tackle. Not every B-rate band is something I want to see. If that makes. Oh, Jefferson Airplane. Well, I could do that. I mean, that's sort of in the average band for the '60s. Not quite B-rate, not quite A-rate. Embryonic Journey, White Rabbit. Oh, yeah, this one's good. I do like this one. Side two, especially. Side one, somebody. Oh yeah, this is a great album. Okay, and this is a quirky name too. They're also from my home area, the San Francisco Bay. So you gotta rep that. I mean, CCR is too, but that wasn't actually CCR album anyway. Okay. Yeah, I'll just do a really good album. Listen to it several times. Yeah. White Rabbit, Somebody to Love, an Embryonic Journey. That's enough for me. You're on the list. Great, beautiful Bay Area album. Okay. Oh, we got the Who, My Generation. Okay, this is obviously a banger. The mods like the Who, right? The Kinks and the Who mods are into. They're kind of edgier. Um, what the rock and the rockers just listen to Elvis and Roy Orbison, whoever the fuck. Beach Boys. Ha 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 ha. Probably not. Okay. I didn't actually realize that My Generation was the name of the album. Didn't really realize that. I mean, I kind of knew it in passing. It's striking that they would name an album after sort of like such a strong like youth and revolt concept, rebellious teens like as an album, and '65 too, no less. Kids are all right. I don't know some of these actually. Some of them are blues covers. I'm a Man, Bo Diddley, right? The Ox. That one sounds like kind of fun. I don't even know what that is. Uh, My Generation, The Kids Are All Right. That's a very classic. There's a movie called The Kids Are All Right. It's pretty good. This album's good. I just think like just feel like there's kind of like some weird stuff on here. The James Brown cover, and they really just another James Brown cover. There's a lot of these like they're ripping off the R&B stuff left and right. And you see this less in the '70s, but in the '60s they do it, especially in the mid and early '60s they do it all the time. and it's actually kind of excruciating, and it makes you kind of not want to listen because you feel like you're listening to like watered down R&B, which is like, see, that's part of the reason why I think rock and roll didn't pick up until later, is because, or didn't perfect itself until later, is because it's like it's sort of like awkward R&B until a certain point in time. Um, Maybe after the civil rights movement, crystallized, but it seems like it's sort of like pretentious, like and like sort of racially, sort of not cuckolded, but like racially sort of ambitious or cross racial cross dressing kind of thing. I don't know. I don't really know if that's a fair assessment, but it does have that sort of like escapist quality. Like, oh, I'm just gonna cover someone else's music and not write my own songs and be centered. And this is me as a songwriter, sort of talking about strategy and tactics for how to like for self expression. Anyway, I'm also a screenwriter, so there's multiple waveforms for this kind of discussion. Um, okay, up next is or did I even rank it? Okay, My Generation. This album is, maybe I don't like this album, not my style, but I'll recommend it. I think That's Very Nice the first time was enough for me. Probably fair placement. Okay, the Kinks. Let's do. We'll do Pet Sounds real quick, just because I like to bunch the famous bands together, so I don't forget about them. I don't like lose steam on them. Okay, Pet Sounds. Like the Rolling Stones, I did one album like earlier on, and then they like Let It Bleed, and then I did Out of My Head like what 30 minutes after the fact. It was just like too distanced, too removed. Um, okay, Pet Sounds. Where's this track list? You can read all day about Pet Sounds. I don't know. Wouldn't it be nice? You still believe me? Wouldn't it be nice if we could wake up? Sleep John B. Sounds like a Chuck Berry line for real. Um, God only knows. It's kind of a funny. It's a little bit of a strange sort of album in some ways. It's sort of autistic maybe, or the singer's just so he's like a castrato, he's like this eunuch that was like forced to never go into puberty so his voice could remain ever higher than his competitors, the competition, um, as, than the necessary competition. I got. I think but I'm like, you can't really knock that sound. I just think it's a little bit of a joke. It's a great like arrangements and harmonies, but it's like I don't know. I don't know if the whole is like the whole is not just some parts of that. It's like, you can't just be technical, and you have to actually have a well-rounded circle without believe the Beatles is no concern was really versed in that kind of process. They're more like a one size fits all, band that just kind of leans into a certain style of like you know revival inspired camp, and they kind of like they don't really like break out into as much as it's not they're probably in a good way. Like I wouldn't want them to be watered down, but like just I don't think it's all ages. So, Everly Brothers, yeah, I'm going these weird ones. Oh no, it was fucking mission bar. Um, I use a little bit of fireworks. I have to explain something. Okay, um, sinless. All I have to do is dream, dream, dream. There, that's what the phrase is. Yeah, this time, I do everything. Those are on the course. Um, so, whatever it's you have to read. This is pretty safe. No, that's even later. 65. Oh, maybe it's just they sing great country hits. That would make more sense. No, but this one's called The Very Best of the Everly Brothers. Huh. It doesn't seem like a 60s album. Oh, whoa. 59. But that's a different one. The Very Best is 64. Okay, well, I can't figure out the track list for that. So I'm gonna lower it to done. It's already there by default, but I'm gonna keep it in. Didn't listen. I hope I will because I couldn't even find the track list on Wikipedia, and if it's not on Wikipedia, I'm just not gonna try that hard unless it's a crucial album that we know is great. You know that we're itching to hear about. Everly Brothers is kind of a sideshow with respect to rock music. It's not really rock music. I don't. I mean, it's '60s music, but it's see. This is what annoys me about this list is that they have these things that are like obviously alluding to music from the '50s, but then they're like compilation albums, and it's like, dude, no, it has to be '60s music. The album, yeah, is a compilation album, but that doesn't mean that the music is '60s. It just means that people were listening to the compilation in the '60s. Okay. I guess that's sort of the idea though, is it's what a slice of life in the history of the 60s. But it's not really what the audiophile how they orient. It's more of a social uh, analyst or cultural historian's perspective, granularly going through the various decades and sussing out what kind of furniture would have been in someone's house in 1964. It's like that kind of stuff is like has its place, but it's not in this podcast. Not this particular episode, at least. I'll probably explore it later on because I do like that stuff when it's sensible. Just not right now. Okay, the Kinks. Finally, a band that's we haven't talked about yet that is killer. Um, incredible band, and they had one of the first trans affirming songs in popular music, Lola. And that's kind of wild that they had that in whatever the year was, 64. Um, I wonder. I'm surprised what who did their publicity and who they signed to because they were a little wild even for back then. John Lord. Oh, bald headed. Wow, the Deep Purple organist was playing bald headed woman. Jimmy Page was doing 12 string on two, maybe three songs. Piano was some guy called Arthur Greenslade, who sounds kind of a little bit like a goody two shoes. I don't really know. I don't want to trash him. Um, wow, man, they took the lyrics from Chuck Berry for some reason. Chuck Berry's kind of, I don't know. He's, he seemed like the type of dude who was like a black dude that like slept with a lot of white women and sort of like probably put people off from that. But for whatever reason, people really liked his music, despite that sort of image that I think he has. And so they kind of stole his song lyrics. Maybe he got royalties. I would like to know what his net worth was at the time of death. Uh, 10 million. Yeah, that's not really that much. I actually don't know a lot of these songs. This is something I have to listen to. Oh, you really got me. I know that one. That's got. I think it has that might have the Jimmy Page solo. Larry Page. That sounds like the guy who's found Google. Well, anyway, the co-founder of Google. Anyway, this album, it's got vitality. Good album. I like it. It's up there with the Beach Boys, Pet Sounds. You really anything with you really got me. It's going to be a killer album, undeniable, undeniable. Okay, the Trogs. We're gonna. You know what's really bogging me down is the Trogs. I fucking hate the Trogs. So I'm gonna go through all the Trogs albums, so I don't have to dwell on it ever again. Okay, Troglodyte. I think at least three Trogs albums are on here. Cellophane. I think it's not a bad album name. 67. Um, you know why I don't like the band like the Association or the Trogs or Strawberry Miss Plastic and whatever that one was, Strawberry Mystery Machine or whatever. They're bands that I don't know if people were that into, but because they're sort of pigeonholed into this retroactive genreizing, where they're labeled, in the psychedelic rock camp, right? Retroactively, because of that, people will go back and like fetishistically listen to them and force themselves to tolerate, hours of these albums that were like, as if they're gospel, as if they're biblical gospel. And you never get the impression from a million miles away that they're like important. But the people that fetishize psychedelic rock, they'll listen to it just for like bragging rights. But from a thousand miles away or 100 miles away, you can sort of feel like that there's something not going for them. However, if you are a musician or a recording artist or a composer, you're going to want a songwriter. You're going to want to listen to this stuff just to see what you're missing, or perhaps assume that you might be missing something and find out what you're missing, if anything. Maybe just to see, give yourself the benefit of the doubt and to see if you're not missing something. That's the way to say it. Um, Cellophane and Troglodyte Dynamite were actually the same year. You don't see that from a lot of bands. I guess some of the better bands you see. So that is a nod towards their credibility. As far as I can tell, this is going to be, I haven't listened to it. I hope I will. No, Troglodyte Dynamite might be better. This guy Presley is called Reg Presley, and so the songwriter is not Elvis Presley; it's Reg Presley. And these guys also steal from Chuck Berry. It's a little demented. Like, was he really that popular in '65? I guess just to cover him like really ruthlessly like that, and then not pay him anything either. Um, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of a weak shit when it comes to the Trogs discography. Haven't really, done my homework. Okay, we'll do another Donovan album. Uh, Um, Earlier is better. In fact, it is necessary. Fairy Tale? Mellow Yellow? Let me see. I do like this kind of lithograph album cover. Gift from Girls to Flower. Hurdy Gurdy Man. Yeah, that's it. That's the one. Okay, great album. 68. October 68. Kind of a good month. Right, kind of a lonely month, perhaps. Hurdy Gurdy Man, Peregrine. Peregrine. The Entertaining but Shy Girl, as I recall, and Get Thy Bearings. It's been a long time. A lot of this stuff is like a melange of just like of like experimental mood symbolism. It's not really like cohesively, representing a theme. Or the theme is sort of the lack of thereof of themes. Um, well, with Hurdy Gurdy Man being the title track and the first track on the side one, it does lend a certain position to Donovan, a certain higher than average position, almost by accident or by default. Um, uh, Not really. I don't know. I think good album. I like it. I think it's got a vibe. You know, you can say that about most of these guys, I guess, but Donovan for sure has a vibe. Some other guys, they just sort of, you know, um, fake the funk, as it were. Okay, let's do Rubber Soul, other Beatles album. Rubber Soul. Sorry, this is so scattershot. I don't know. I'm going off instinct. I don't I don't really have a system for measuring these, in parallel. I guess or sort of comparing them in like an axis by axis system, multi-axis system, a bold as love axis system. Okay, Rubber Soul. Yeah, right. There's like a fucking book written about this. So whoever wrote the book put everything on Wikipedia after they wrote it. Right? It's just classic Beatles album um, wiki nonsense. Okay, Drive My Car. Great song actually. One of the ones that kind of transcends the Beatles repertoire of like sort of silly boyish ditties. It's a little more suggestive. Um, Michelle, Nowhere Man, that's a good one too. Rubber Soul might be low key kind of fun, kind of a smart album compared to so many other asinine Beatles concept albums that just sort of are like frying like that melt your brain like frying an egg in a pan. Literally, it's like your brain on drugs. The PSA from decades of yore. Okay, Rubber Soul. I think Ozzy Osbourne said that this was his favorite album, which tells you something about Ozzy because this album does not strike me as the album that Black Sabbath singer would, recommend. But on some level, it's probably was an inspiration for him, at least in terms of fashion, because I can see how his fashion is sort of inspired by the attitude and dressage of these Beatles. Do, 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 do. I'm gonna say, I don't know. I'm not crazy like about this. I'm edging towards good album. I like it, but I'm thinking I'm gonna stay put, and that's very nice. The first time was not for me. Even if Ozzy Osbourne is retiring and we have to tribute for him, I'm not gonna artificially inflate my answer. Maybe I've done that for other reasons, but I'm not gonna do it just because I respect an aging and mentally enfeebled and crippled rock star who metal star really. Okay. Ugh, I can't believe we just trashed Ozzy like that. All right. Do. Hope the audio is still good. Roy Orbison crying. I didn't know that was an album by Roy Orbison was crying. All his best songs are the title tracks for his album. That's very like matter of fact. Okay. It's like he knows when the song is good and he just doesn't sort of, you know. play any games with the advertising. Probably because 62. Hmm. Was Don McClain part of that same group as Roy Orbison? I don't know. He was a funny like 70s version of like of that. Like he was like an amalgamation kind of all those different a pastiche and amalgamation of all these various 60s um early 60s sort of rockabilly rock and rollers that didn't age very well. Okay, no, it's not a song, it's an album, dude, from the album Crying, 1962, which has The Great Pretender, Love Hurts. Funny. Okay, Scott, this is probably a good album if it has Love Hurts on it. It might not be. I would have to listen through all of it, but like I think the side A or side one, as they call it, um, is probably respectable. Still, it's a Roy Orbison album, so how amazing could it be? Um, where we should do some Pink Floyd to finally, I'll do the next Simon and Garfunkel, and then I'll do Pink Floyd because that's if anyone's expecting anything, it's that. It should probably be time stamped. But the thing with Pink Floyd is that their music in the '60s was not unless Dark Side was no, yeah, their music in the '60s was pretty silly and out to lunch and lyrically brilliant, but like their actual like textures were not that sophisticated or that meaningful. Okay, Crying, yeah, let's put it in probably there. Yeah, probably next to Rubber Soul and My Generation and Surfing USA and Revolver and Buffalo Springfield and Cheap Thrills and Highway 61 Revisited. Sort of like, sort of just like an above average album. That's, or like a squarely, or just like a moderately good album. Anyway, moving on. We're moving on. Music from Big Pink. I just want. I'm excited to do that one, so I'll just do it. Now they're looking up a band when I type in the band, but that's the name of the band. Or just type in music from Big Pink. Yeah. The Wait, I Shall Be Released. Tears of Rage is a great opening song. It was written by Bob Dylan. That's kind of cool. The Wait, The Wheels on Fire. I don't really know some of these, but like, Shall Be Released maybe. Yazoo. Yeah, I don't really. Anyway, I would say Key to the Highway. Huh. Kind of cool. Um, where was it? The Lovin' Spoonful. Where is it? Where's Big Pink? I'm like full ADD right now. Unreal. Where is it? I preloaded it, reinstalled. Okay. Yeah, I think it's a good album. I like it. There. It's in the B minus ranking. Okay. Um, Steppenwolf we'll get to. Neil Diamond, unfortunately, we'll have to get to. Okay, we'll do this other Bob Dylan one because nothing's easier to smirch than a Bob Dylan album from the early '60s. Um, I mean, he's a joke because he's so great. I mean, he got the Nobel Prize in literature, right? 54 albums. What the fuck have I been doing, dude? What the fuck have I been doing? Jeez. Don't think twice. It's all right. Hmm. Mixed up confusion. Free will. That's the one. The free will and Bob Dylan. But this one, the photo, he looks like a dweeb. It's weird. I don't know. I guess like he's like trying to be one. It's like, is he a heartthrob or is he like a like a overgrown child? I don't know. Oh, so this album is actually one of his most definitive because it has some of the songs were covered or redone later on, but the Free Will and Bob Dylan is kind of the best one. It's got Blowing in the Wind, Girl from North Country, Masters of War, A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall, Don't Think Twice, It's All Right. This might be the best Bob Dylan album so far. For sure, one of the best ones ever. Um, and out here, there I was making fun of its goofy cover, but that's a very humble cover, very humble, with a sort of eclectic name relative to what the cover suggests, but still not unhinged or, by any means. Doo, 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 doo. Okay, I probably put it at interesting and great albums. Maybe really good album. I've listened several times to it. I'll just keep it where it is. I think we have to put one album, Bob Dylan album, up there, don't we? Okay, probably another one around the bend as well. Okay, here's a Pink Floyd one. No, maybe we can do one of the more recognizable ones. What's this? What's this? Yes, Steppenwolf. Oh yeah, well this is Simon and Garfunkel, Bridge Over Troubled Water. Probably has their most appealing cover. Uh, it's just a very it's a monochromatic photo. Oh no, that wasn't it. Maybe it was Bookends. Oh, Bookends is the one with the good cover. Weird. Okay, what was the song? Mrs. Robinson. That's the one in America. Bookends. Funny. Wow, this is a beautiful album. Mrs. Robinson was made for the movie The Graduate, but um, there's still something kind of beautiful about it. America is a great album. This is like a love letter to New York, almost. All right, well, we'll give it high marks. It was recovered the CBS building in Manhattan. I mean, it's very elegant. I don't know, kind of matte and monochrome, kind of understated in some ways. But that's what elegance takes. You know, it's elegant but not opulent, humble. Okay, really good album. I've listened several times to it. Maybe I'm selling my soul with that one. I'll lower it to good album. I like it. Yep, sounds about right. Yeah. Okay. Hal Blaine worked on this. A really famous percussionist who worked. It was a studio musician who worked in all these different bands, and he was part of a group of musicians called the Wrecking Crew. And it's always he has a kind of a somewhat distinctive percussive style, but also sort of generic for the time, for the 60s and 50s. Um, anyway, Hal Blaine, that was his name, Hal Blaine. Um, he was one of the top uh, studio musicians of all time. Hal Blaine. Hal Blaine. Okay, anyway, Wrecking Crew. Wrecking Crew was not a band. It was like a group of musicians that worked independently of each other, but they were just so tight knit sometimes. And sometimes they would work on an album for an artist as like an assignment. Anyway, who we got? Van Morrison. I mean, that could be easy. Blown Your Mind by Van Morrison. It's sad how far away we are from the 60s. It's almost like, even in my lifetime, it's not that long. I guess it's kind of long, almost 30. But even in my lifetime, I, the distance between now and the 60s has grown. Like, it's staggering. Same with World War II. I mean, 60s was sort of the cultural World War II. It was very important and sort of something that you feel like really no one should forget, but you know they inevitably will, if not already have started to. Or some people probably just don't even care, frankly. Um, World War II is very old. It's almost 80 years old. Okay, let's see. This is not what it was. It was Blowing Your Mind. What's this factoid about Marlena Dietrich? Oh, funny. Okay, Marlena Dietrich. I just read this. So I'm going to say it. Recorded a German cover of "Blowing in the Wind" by Bob Dylan, and that went to the 32nd position in the German charts. You know, you didn't have to know that, but now you do. Okay, anyway, "Blowing Your Mind" has "Brown Eyed Girl," which is his most famous song. The song he's most known for, right? And the funny part is that he is the funny part is this album has a stupid name, but then his most famous song, which I consider kind of elegant in its naming, is like the title, is like the initial track. Anyway, I've never been crazy about Van Morrison. I would say not my style, but I'll recommend it. Um, Aftermath, the Rolling Stones. I'm gonna check that one out. Get the Stones out of the way. The Rolling Stones. Okay. Bill Wyman. This is another one you could write a fucking book. Oh, this is not the album. That's why. Okay. Aftermath. 66. A year that we haven't had that many cool albums for some reason. Because possibly because it's an even number. Well, I'm not entirely sure. Carnaby Street with the burgeoning, swinging London youth scene. A lot of London going on in the 60s. I wonder if London's still just as relevant as it was then. Okay, American Edition, Paint It Black, Lady Jane, Under My Thumb. So Aftermath's pretty good. Just based on the side A. I don't know the side two, to B or side two that well. I would give it a higher. I would give it a higher. Maybe That's Very Nice. The first time was enough for me. Yeah, I would say so. It has some good songs, but it's just probably an excruciating listen. Some of the time. Like I'm saying, their music is not always cut to size. It's kind of they don't have a very good sense of stature or a sense of purpose in some of their attempts. Unfortunately, the Beatles I think, were more consistent, but I don't think the Beatles' music reaches the same heights that a lot of the Stones' music does, at least as a rock genre. Okay, we're gonna knock out these '60s Pink Floyd albums because they're Sid Barrett monstrosities that are kind of creations of the devil in some ways. But I do respect their insanity as much as one can. Okay, Pink Floyd, Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Piper's at the Gates of Dawn. The Gates of Dawn. I like that. That's very imagined. What is the Gate of Dawn? And why would there be a Piper at the Gate of Dawn? Questionable. 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 Okay. Interstellar Overdrive. Gnome. Scarecrow. Bike. Flaming, Matilda Mother, Lucifer Sam, Astronomy Domine. Okay, well I'm already like I feel like I'm fetishizing it. This that's it, right? The Wind in the Willows. That's a book I need to read. The Wind in the Willows. See Emily play. Emily play. What is this? Games for May. Yeah, there's something kind of beautiful about this album, but it's also it's a little too tragic and convoluted and just disjointed for me to really encapsulate into words right now. I think the whole thing was a mess, and the music shows, but then the lyrics are very very intelligent. Um, it's not. It shows you how much potential. It's really just like disorganized Pink Floyd. I mean, it just shows you how strong they were even when they were at their most lazy and kind of loose and sort of disorganized. Um, I would say yeah, that's very nice. The first time was enough for me. Maybe I'll listen to it more. I would say it's slightly better than Trout Mask Replica as an experience. Okay, what's the next Pink Floyd album? A Saucer Full of Secrets. Yeah, Sid Barrett was the band leader, and then he had a mental decline, and then they brought in David Gilmour, a little bit of a fucking stiff. He's a little, he's a little like, ugh, kind of, kind of autistic, but good solos, and, you know. I always get the impression David Gilmour never had a sense of humor. Um, I don't know. I would probably say I don't like this album, but because it's Pink Floyd, I'm gonna give it not my style, but I'll recommend it. The fact that Sid Barrett isn't involved is sort of saddening, but you know there could be something to this early Roger Waters sort of music. And Gilmore's obviously just started to get involved. Okay, what is this? Let's do. I'll do some Beatles. They're all kind of down there. The Beatles, um, Abbey Road. The 11th studio album by the Beatles. Come Together, Maxwell, Silver Hammer, Something, Oh Darling, Octopus Garden. Here Comes the Sun. This is probably one of the better ones from the Beatles. I mean, it's still like, you know, it's still like mildly disappointing compared to like the fucking hype machine that like, you know, shoves this stuff down your throat all the time. But I would still say it's maybe a little better than that. Good album, I like it. Yeah, I'd say it's that. Good album, I like it. Kind of average. Yeah, at the end of the day, so iconic and yet kind of an average. The Beatles are kind of like the most average band. It's like Coca-Cola. Um, Beatles. Let's just do Help. Do Beatles Help. Abbey Road. I mean, yeah, who knew? Yeah. I mean, the fact that they're taking a picture of themselves walking across the street is pretty, you know, pretty dorky. Uh, and we're supposed to like go to that street with our limited time on our 4-day vacation in London and go and walk across the street with our fucking like our small family and take a photo just because they did it 50 fucking years ago. It's like, no, I don't think so. I don't think. I mean, I'll probably do it, but still, it's like ugh, so demeaning. They had nothing else to do. Okay. Oh yeah, Help was one thing I do respect about the Beatles is they did make movies for them, which was kind of awesome. I wish other bands did that, like Zeppelin or something. Zeppelin kind of tried to, but they never really fully formed it. But the Beatles did. That's the one thing I think is really cool about them. Ticket to Ride, Help. Oh, this album's fucking obnoxious. Uh, yeah, see, this is what I mean. This is them in their earlier years, and it's like a horrific, you know, dismally um drab and like saccharine album. Ugh, so horrendous. And literally, Bob Dylan came out with like a Rolling Stone, like in the same month. Like Highway 61 Revisited is the same month, a little bit later, but the same month as Help. So that shows you how sophisticated the Beatles were. They were just like they really were miles behind. I mean, I guess you get to hide your love away is good. Was Yesterday on here? Oh, Yesterday is on here. Okay, so they have some good things. All right, I didn't realize they had some tasteful, touching, um, humane ballads that are timeless. Okay, Help. All right. Well, I did like the movie as much as I can remember of it. Okay, good album. I like it. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Okay, we whittle down the Beatles comfortable. Let's see to create some comfortable distance from them. Let's do another Cream album. I think we only had one anyway, which is totally not enough. Cream, fresh cream. Yeah, that's it. Okay, cream fresh. Wheels of Fire. Oh, they did 4 albums, not 3. That's kind of good. Spoonful. This Toad ends. This one kind of jams. Let's see the U.S. version. I Feel Free, Toad. Spoonful was not on the U.S. version. Okay. Even though they say fresh cream, it should have had Spoonful. Whatever. Okay. Spoonful should have been on there. They had fresh cream. They should have had it on there. I'm just saying. Is this fresh cream? Or is that good? Is that the other one? Yeah, I think it's the other one. Let me see if fresh cream is even on this fucking tier list. Um, Jeez, I don't even see it. I don't even see it. Okay, so if it's not on here, I can't tier rank it. So I'm just gonna go down the pipe to the third one, Wheels of Fire. Right, Wheels of Fire. I like the bubble font in the title cover art. White Room, Born Under a Bad Sign. They also have Live at the Fillmore Crossroads and Spoonful and Live Toad. I think this is a pretty good one. So sort of a dorky version of a cool band. Cream does get consistently high marks for the professional um, chops of its musicians and the verve in its grooves. The verve in its grooves. You heard it here. Um, so good album. I like it. Okay, maybe even really good album. Listening search. I would say really good album. Okay. Okay, I'll knock out the Neil Diamond and the Loving Spoonful because we did spoonful of fresh cream, so we're gonna do Loving Spoonful just to see what mileage we can get. Greenwich Village. That's where they formed. That's their origins. Greenwich Village. All right. Daydream. Here it is. Daydream. Daydream. It's all about daydreams. Okay. Yeah. This is like monotonous. All right. I'll have. To, I'm sure it's a fine song. So it's sort of totally fucking random and wacky, but and boring. But yeah, one fine song. That's very nice. The first time was enough for me. Let's do that. And honestly, maybe I'll mince my words later because there could be some great things going on with this particular second album by The Lovin' Spoonful, released in 1966. Not the best year, by the way, for albums, but I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's it's the best ever, ever. Okay, let's do Neil Diamond. Dude, I didn't even know this guy was making music in this early on in the 60s. He seems almost like a he seems just like kind of like a mid 70s artist, like a who's I don't even know, like Todd Rundgren or that Canadian singer songwriter that Joni Mitchell had some correspondence with, friendship with. Um, 82, dude. His last name is Diamond. Come on, that's not real. No one names himself Diamond, and that means no one's named Diamond organically. Um, Velvet Gloves and Spit. Funny. Uh, yeah, I'm not getting it. The so-called '60s albums aren't even '60s albums. So maybe I knew more than I thought I knew. Maybe I was never wrong to begin with. Okay, uh, she's gonna overlook Neil Diamond. Oh, here's one. Here's one that we didn't do. Okay. Wait, was that Taproot Manuscript? No, that was Touching You, Touching Me. No, Stones. No, yeah, no. Jesus, I think it's the first one. Feel of Neil Diamond. Is that it? That's it. The Feel of Neil Diamond. Okay, we found one. Don't know any of these songs. I'm gonna put it in. Don't listen. I hope I will. Maybe I should put it in horrible. I'll put it in horrible. Just no, because if I eat my words, I'm like gonna resent that I did that. Um, more trogs. All right, we've done at least half, right? Let's count, and then I'll decide. I'll probably split this because it's way late, and I'm not gonna be able to do the rest of these. I'll do the CCR. Jeez, so many weird albums on here. Mamas and the Papas. I can't see a lot of it. That's the other thing. A lot of them I just can't see. The Zombies is on here. I can barely see that. Crosby, Stills and Nash album. Okay, I know this album, so I'll just run it because I know it pretty well. This one's good. It's got Judy Blue Eyes. It's kind of their main song that they're known for. I'll say good album. I like it. That's very nice. I think it's a good album. I like it. Okay, without looking anything up. Um, Steppenwolf, The Doors, The Beatles. Um, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can handle this. You know what I'll do is I'll listen to a bunch of random '60s music and then come back when I've listened to like 50 more songs or so on, and then I'll probably be able to make better use of your precious time and actually establish effective categories for all the remaining albums. Because I some of them I could probably just force into a position, but I just don't want to like go off of like limited knowledge on like some of the major hits for these artists. And I just can't even see the goddamn. I can zoom in, I guess. So maybe okay, that actually kind of solves it. So maybe I can. Okay, actually, yeah, that solves it a lot. Small faces, the zombies. Please, please me by Beatles. Okay, I'll do that. 63, early. Fearless by George Martin. Um, a lot of original songs. Love Me Do. A Taste of Honey. Is that's like a Herb Alpert cover, right? Okay. Well, anyway, didn't know they did that. Please, please me. Uh, that's okay. I'm gonna say I don't like this album. All right, let's look at the Doors. Waiting for the Sun. It's hard to believe that photo was so high quality. It's hard to believe they did it in the '60s. Okay, it's like a really cool. Um, lost that. That's Southern California with that lighting and grass. All right. Hello, I love you. Won't you tell me your name? Hello. See, I'm convulsing. I know this song already. Um, yeah, it's good. It's not great, but it's good. Okay. Um, maybe else who good album I like it. I'll be generous with the Doors and pretend I like it, probably more than I actually do. What's this one? Okay. Sounds of Silence. Finally, we have Sounds of Silence. Oh, that was. Wait, I thought they had a different album where they did Sounds of Silence. Did they redo Sounds of Silence, or did they just not have the song Sounds of Silence on their album name, same name? Oh, the Sound of Silence. It's weird. They're like playing on their weird. Maybe they redid the song. Weird. I'll have to look into this. Maybe the original one wasn't good. But Kathy's song is good, so I know this album at least is good because Kathy's song's on it. Okay, good album. I like it. Probably about as good as that Doors album, I would imagine. Um, the zombies begin here. That's funny. That's actually pretty funny. Okay, begin here. Debut studio album by the Zombies, and they had She's Not There, Roadrunner. Bo Diddley wrote that, I guess. Surprise, surprise. Rod Argent. Funny. Okay, well, this album is, you can't trash it. You can only trash something like this so much. It's got one great hit, overplayed hit, and then a bunch of other random filler. blues based. All these they're copying when they cover blues artists. They're just sort of grabbing for straws. Um, that's very nice. The first time was enough for me, probably. Okay, I'll do that with Neil Diamond. I'll just put all of him in. That's very nice, bro. That was first time was enough for me. Maybe I'll mince my words and eat them too, but as far as I can tell. Okay, we have this on my screen. It looks like the Black Album because the colors are inverted, but this is actually the White Album, the Beatles. I know for a fact it's fairly high up, so I'll put it in. Great album, really good album. I listened to it several times. Maybe even not that high. What's this one? Okay, the Kinks. Okay, another Kinks album should be rewarding. The Kinks. Uh, Kind of Kinks. Kink controversy. Face to face. Something else by the Kinks. Arthur or the Decline and Fall of the British Empire. Okay, I don't know which one that was. Who's this black dude? Is a jazz musician? Oh, Booker T again. They should probably have had some jazz artists on here. It's a little annoying because what's all Booker T. I don't know if Booker T really qualifies if none of the jazz artists are on here either, or blues or R&B or whatever. Okay, let's look at complete animals. We haven't even done the animals yet. Complete animals. Hopefully the birds are on here too. Eric Burden animals. And Eric Burden later went on to do War, which is a pretty good group. Um, so something to be said for that. Um, okay, we'll do animalisms. Tom Wilson, was that one of the Wilson brothers? Oh, weird. Important guy I never read up on. Um, sounds like someone I've heard about at some point, but I can't remember. I can't confirm if it's where I think it is. I think I read it. Tom Wilson, important record producer. This The Mother's Invention, Simon and Garfunkel, The Velvet Underground, Cecil Taylor, Sun Ra, Eddie Harris, Nico, Eric Burden, and the Animals. Pretty good. If I don't say so myself. I can't get a read on this album. It seems like a bunch of possible. Seems like a bunch of personality kind of things. Animalisms. I mean, it just seems sort of like iffy. Maybe I'll do that. That's very nice. The first time was enough for me. Okay. Up next is how many of these small faces? Is that the same as faces? Okay, I'll do small faces. No, it's not. Small faces is some other shit. It's like a one hit wonder. Ugh. From the beginning. Decca. Decca Records. Okay, so basically the skinny on this is that they copied Willie Dixon songwriting who wrote for Muddy Waters, a famous, well known song for Muddy Waters. And then Led Zeppelin copied the Small Faces because Robert Plant loved the way they interpret the lyrics or whatever. So it's all kind of transitive association and whatnot. Um, so for my basic, like you know, judging a book by its cover assessment, I would analyze it as a slightly above average album. And if Robert Plant likes it, it must be okay. Where is it? Small Faces. Yeah, the debut. Okay. Tommy James and the Shondells and the Cellophane Society. Okay. Small Faces. Good album. Um, Tommy James, Shondells, Cellophane Society. Tommy James and the Shondells. Creature feature at the front. Creature feature at the front. Creature feature at the front. Oh fuck! I'll get back to me. Crimson Clover, Sweet Cherry Wine. Okay, well, let me find the album. I'm like, my mind is like shot right now. Hanky Panky, Cellophane Symphony. That's it. Well, I don't really know. Sweet Cherry Wine was from here. That could be okay. All right, I'm gonna pause this for now because these albums are getting pretty obscure. There's still some more well-known ones, but I don't know if I can how much more that I can handle. I'll have to listen to it. I really will. Or at 3 hours. I'll go to 3 hours and I'll pause. Um, so just so I know, so I can listen to this stuff before I prejudge it. We have some Steppenwolf. We have some early Beatles, some Monkeys, Trogs, Kinks, Birds, um, Animals, Love. Yes, it seems like maybe something called Booker T and the MGs twice. Maybe something called the Mellow Yellow. Oh, Donovan's Mellow Yellow. Okay, that's easy enough. Queen's Creedence Clearwater Revival. Yes, even some Simon Garfunkel, even some Big Brother and the Holden Company. I should be able to do this. Buffalo Springfield. It's kind of a lot of music, but I feel like it's not impossible. A lot of it's just the same, one of another Mamas and the Papas. A lot of them is the same groups. Just making sure the great country hits of Everly Brothers, In Search of the Lost Child. Not sure who that is. Revolution, Revolution, The London Spoonful, more Tommy James and the Shondells. Them again. Faced by Kinks. Okay, well these are all like the same, like 7 groups, but I guess that's what it takes. Buffalo Springfield, The Association. I guess it won't be too hard to get this right. Um, the Birds, the Bees, and the Monkeys. Sounds like it could be a crossover between the Birds and the Monkeys and the Animals, but if I know anything, it's unlikely that that is the case. Anyway, um, Odyssey Oracle by the Zombies. That one's psychedelic for sure. Okay, well, worth knowing, I suppose. This one doesn't even have a title listed, stamped. What you call it? Okay, what's this one? They don't have any Grateful Dead on here. Sort of maybe Uncle Uncle Meat. What is Uncle Meat? It's kind of disturbing. Yeah, it's a Frank Zappa, of course it is. Okay, I'll close out with Uncle Meat, and then I'll save everything. I'll save all these lagging sort of whatever albums for the miscellaneous um, these C rate albums. Oh man, I actually have to listen to this Uncle Meat too, so maybe there's more to it. Kinks, love them again. The Doors, The Soft Parade. Jesus, I'm really gonna brush up on this. Oh, Astral Weeks by Van Morrison. Okay, well maybe I can do that one. I'm trying to do ones where I can knock out the entire group because I don't want to have to dwell on 68. I feel like this one's got pizzazz, no question about it. I'm gonna give Astral Weeks. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? With the Beatles. Here it is. I'll try to do the Beatles too, and maybe the Hendrix one or the Doors, just to get these ones out of the way. Um, that's nice. No, I'd say it's probably a good album. I like it. Astral Weeks. Um, with the Beatles. With the Beatles. Seems like a very like magnificent, sort of quaint, beautiful album. This Astral Weeks with the Beatles. Beatlemania, whatever it is. Roll over Beethoven. That's funny that still the Chuck Berry. Okay. I would say not my style. I don't recommend it. Okay, what else? Yes, I'll do the first Yes album just to get out of the way. Oh, the James Gang. No, I don't. Yes. What was their first one? Time and a Word. Did Yes ever have? Oh, here it is. Yeah, here it is. The first Yes album, Sweetness, Looking Around. Well, it's Yes, so it's probably not heinously bad. Um, without really listening to it, but knowing their sound fairly well, I would say it's probably that's very nice. The first time was enough for me, for the most part. Um, Uncle Meat is probably up there too. Mothers of Invention can only just can't do every they can only do so many things at a high level. At a certain point, it saturates and it just starts to seem like mech, like milk, like black, like look, like blob, like the great blob from the Fright Night creature chick flick in the 50s. Okay, we've made some headway somehow. Pop. Okay, get the last Mamas and Papas one on here. Papas and Mamas by Mamas. More wordplay. It's the album's called The Papas and the Mamas, and it's by the Mamas and the Papas. Hmm. I don't know what you guys think, but it seems like they're doing something tricky there. I can't pinpoint what it is. No, this one looks like a fucking. This is like a sentimental. Like you really have to like. It's like all the songs are deep cuts, and they're all like about heart throbs and domestic violence, that's like guarded by, coy, dreamy language, and very ethereal. But I don't know. Maybe it's a good album. Like, I like the name actually. I'll just assume it's a good album for the sake of expediency and diplomacy. Let's look at this. Everly Brothers country hits. Man, when you zoom in, you really can knock these out. Should have done that from the beginning. Sing great country hits. Okay, what did I even have to look this up? You know what it's gonna be. It's gonna, yeah. Great. Well, apparently they're great country hits. So not my style, but I'll recommend it. How about? Okay. Let's see how many can we just do real quick. The Birds, the Kinks, Beach Boys, some more Beach. Hard Day's Night. Okay, okay. Probably the last. Almost. It seems like that was the last Beatles album. Probably wrong though. Usually wrong. Same thing I've learned doing this podcast episode. I'm usually wrong. Okay. Hard Day's Night. Can't Buy Me Love. Yeah, it's like a subpar Beatles album, kind of bottom of the barrel. The Beatles are the ones I'm like kind of the most tedious because you kind of don't really want to have to you don't, not my style, but I'll recommend it. You don't really want to have to adjudicate, or you don't have to jump to any conclusion or consensus because it's like something that's like the well trodden path, and there are people who can do it a lot better. But some of these, you're kind of like excited. Okay, listen to the other zombies one. I think there's like one more. Odyssey and Oracle. Time of the Season. So yeah, this one's pretty good based on its hits singles that came off of it. The singles. Um, maybe yeah, that's very nice. The first time was enough for me. Um, Buffalo Springfield again. I think there's only one more. There's two more Buffalo Springfields. So um, okay, we're at 3 hours. We have like two more from just about every band. So I think we'll just call it quits for now. Okay, we have one Jimi Hendrix thing that seems like it's just Are You Experienced or again. So I think it's disqualified. And if it does exist, I'll just listen to it and make an additional um, formulation of opinion. Them again. Okay, that's a one-off. I'll just do that. Them again. Yeah, by the studio album, the band is called Them, and it was the original band that Van Morrison was in. I don't know if this qualifies as important, but I guess it seems like a personal favorite of whoever made this list. I'm gonna go ahead and say not my style, but I'll recommend it. Okay, here's the last Beatles album. Finally, what is it? What is it called? What is this one? Beatles for Sale. I forgot that was even one of them. It tells you everything about them, doesn't it? That they're for sale. Okay. I'm a loser. Okay, this one's kind of 8 days a week is on here. Okay, this one's kind of might be a more funny, ironic, and humorous and self-parroting. Um, okay, I'll do good album. I like it. Maybe I'd like that one. Maybe that's the Beatles album for me, the one that's for sale. Okay. The association has birthdays. I think there's only one more association. So maybe even one more Trogs. So I'll just do those. And maybe you could even just call it quits from there and say everything else is stupid. Because I'm starting to get the impression that that might be emphatically the case. Um, these are all just shoo-ins, aren't they? The birds, the animals, the Trogs. It's like, okay, birthday. Okay, easy enough. Oh, and just jeez. Hal Blaine again in the footnotes. Oh, MacArthur Park. Yeah, they were gonna do the MacArthur Park, and then Richard Harris did it, and it was actually pretty good. And yeah, and then they just kind of missed out because they're dumb. They don't have Moby Grape on here. This list is BS. They don't even have like certain things that are totally necessary. I'm gonna put this one under. I don't like this album. I'll just do it like this. Got my style. Okay, so everything else is just not good. Yeah, the monkeys, the birds. Okay, we'll do the Last Kinks one because that's probably tolerable. I'm like, if I'm not, they're like making me like dragging me through the mud of all this shit. I will listen to the rest of these, but like, I can't. I'm gonna be like a reluctant expert for sure. Uh, something else by the Kinks. This is the one with Lola. No, Waterloo Sunset. Oh yeah, this one's good. Finally, a good one. All the miscellaneous Booker T and MG albums. Jeez. No, this is a good album. First edition. Oh, that's another one off. Okay, we can gain traction with that. Hmm. Yeah, not my style, but I'll recommend it. Okay, the Soft Parade, Final Doors one, isn't it? Soft Parade. Is this the last 60s one? Yeah, the last 60s. Okay, this one's good. Doors are always pretty good. At least we got one at the end that was it's got Touch Me. That's like one of their biggest hits. Good album, I like it. Um, let's do the Buffalo Springfield. Yeah, we might just knock them out. Yeah, this one's fun. That's good. It's got Bluebird, Mr. Souls, but it's good. Some other there's another one on here also. It's Broken Arrow. No, expecting to fly out. I forget. But yeah, it's a good one. Um, can't believe we can't find Crimson and Clover. Is this Crimson and Clover? They have all these Tommy James and no Crimsons and Clover. Fine. Born to Be Wild by Steppenwolf. Oh, I see. It's not called that. It's just called Steppenwolf. It's they added it on for marketing on digital on the CD or whatever. Okay. It's called Steppenwolf, but they say featuring Born to Be Wild. Okay, good album. I like it. Yeah, I think that's very nice the first time. Okay, this is about as good as it's gonna get for me. I'm not gonna rank the birds or the animals. What is this? I don't even know what that is. I don't even. I'm not gonna rank Booker T or the Monkees, the Beach Boys' Summer Days, Simon and Garfunkel, Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, and Thyme. Um, okay, I'll do that because that's probably got Scarborough Fair, and that one is first time was good, and then this one, this Beach Boys one, says Summer Days. Let's see what's on there. Erotic visual novel, Japanese. No, okay. California Girls. That's isn't that the good one? I don't know. I think so. I'll do not my style. I'll do that's very nice. First time was enough for me. Small faces. The Sonics. I don't even know what the Sonics are. Okay, here are the small faces. There are but four small faces. Ooh, these guys are really pushing it, dude. They keep making puns about the name of their band. Oh, I think it's this one. There are but four small faces. Yeah, I can't do this. I can't do this. Small faces, dude. They're good. All right, they're good. They're good enough. They're all good. Everything's good. Donovan Mellow Yellow. Okay, I'll do that one. If it's just like a whatever band, I'm not gonna do every album. I think it's a little insulting to my intelligence. Um, and I don't, and I'm not saying that as someone who thinks I'm very smart either. I think a lot of people would have the same sentiment. Sorry, but not sorry. Okay. Mellow Yellow, yeah, it's got Mellow Yellow. What else do you need to know? John Paul Jones played on it. Jimmy Page played on it. It's probably great. I mean, it's Donovan, dude. How fucked up could this album even be? Uh, okay, okay. I will say that I'll listen to the next Steppenwolf album. I have not. I will listen to it. I want to listen to. rather than all the other albums I don't want to listen to. Yes, yes, that's cool. It's probably one of the weaker Donovan albums. Um, I think, then again, I don't know. It's probably good, so I'll say it's good. Don't want to downplay it. Um, the Birds, the Kinks, the Animals, the Banes of My Existence, Psychotic Reaction, Count Five. Okay, that one is a one-hit wonder of a band, so it'll be easy. They really should have done. Oh, they covered the Who. Kind of weird. Um, I don't know. Maybe this one's kind of quirky. Yeah, punches above its weight. I'll say it's um I'll say it's good. I got a good feeling about it. I'm not gonna do the Sonics. The Bird, the Trogs. Okay. From Nowhere, the Trogs. If there's just one Trogs left, I'll consider that part of the whittling down. Last Time a Sound, Buffalo Springfield. Okay, we can do Trogs. Last Time a Sound. Oh, Last Time Around. Um, Man, they have a lot of albums. On the Way Home, Special Care. This is like an album that no one fucking listens to anymore. I'll say I haven't listened to it, but I want to. Okay, what else? Um, and anything that's not up there is just trash. Okay, all the Tommy James. I'm gonna say I haven't listened to, but I want to. Small Faces, I'll put there too. I haven't listened to, want to. Booker T, I'll put up there. Booker T, definitely. The Bird, the Kinks, I'll put up there. Probably the Birds, the Trogs, I'll put Horrible. Okay. Um, Love. Yeah, the Love and Spoonful. I'll put Horrible. Love and Spoonful. Horrible. Want to. Want to. Horrible. 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 Want to. Horrible. Want to. Okay, I'll give. I think the Birds. Want to. Want to. And the Animals. I do want to. I do, admittedly. What's this? Clayton's. Why is there only one of these on here? CCR's only one CCR album. And they're from my home area. They're from the Bay. They're from El Cerrito, dude. I gotta love El Cerrito. I gotta love CCR. I don't know how they got together in El Cerrito, but they made it work, and that's amazing. Okay, Bayou, Green River. Oh, that's what that album was. I never knew that was Bad Moon Rising. Okay, this is CCR. Great. Rank this. Okay, I'm basically done most of them, so that's probably a good album. Yeah. Okay, what else? Sonics. Yeah, I guess I'll listen to the Sonics. Um, just more Loving Spoonful, dude. Which was that? I just think that's the Kinks. Something. Yeah, yeah, and then okay. It's gonna have the word love in it. I'm just Big Brother. Haven't listened to this extra one. I want to. What the fuck is this? Jefferson Airplane. Okay. Jefferson Airplane. Sounds like Jeffrey Dahmer, doesn't it? Takes off. Man, not even. That's it. Crown of Creation. They had a lot of albums just like sort of funny. I don't know anything about this. I guess I have to listen to it if I want to. All these Big Brothers are duplicates or triplicates or quadruplicates or whatever. I think this is also a Big Brother, so I'll put this in. Haven't listened to it but want to. It's clearly Janis Joplin's face. This is a Beatles album called. No, it's not. I don't know what it is. I can't read it. Oh, that's Them. It's another Them album. Okay. I'll put that back where I put the other Them. Jeez. Them Again. I think it's the original Them, so I'll tuck it in here. And then I can't. These ones don't have names. Kind of hard to work with on that. In Search of the Lost Child. I'll just look that up real quick. The Lost. Moody Blues. Oh, it's a Moody Blues album. That kind of explains it a little. I will say good. Moody Blues has to be good. Creedence Clearwater. Let's see what this one is, because the Lost Chord. Oh, In Search of the Lost Chord. Okay, that's kind of trippy. Green River? No. Yeah, that's it. Wiley and the Poor Boys. Fortunate Son. Pretty cool. I dig it. That's my vibe, dude. Yep, good album. Really good album. Okay. I don't know what these are. Probably know the names, but I just don't know what these albums are. So without any further ado, 3 minutes. Great. Okay, I'm just gonna stop.